Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, coming and joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, television, whatever other stuff is going on in pop culture. The stuff that we want to talk about, that's what we're going to talk about here today. And a very happy, what holiday is it?
Labor Day.
Labor Day. I'm Canadian, I'm sorry. Labor Day to all of our international friends here, particularly the ones here in the U.S. enjoying your holiday. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous day, rest and relaxation, or filled with fun and wonder, whatever it is you guys got going on. And speaking of filled with fun and wonder, it's the master of fun and wonder, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett is here.
I love that. The master of fun and wonder. I used to be the gatekeeper of verisimilitude. Now I am the master of fun and wonder. You know, people have been saying that not in so many words my whole life, but you just gave me the title I've looked for a long time, John.
Master of fun and wonder. And also joining us here today is the equally delightful, the wonderful Miss Chris Carr is here. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm going to a barbecue after this. I'm making deviled eggs. I'm making bacon-wrapped oysters. I'm going to watch the Steven Universe movie.
Bacon-wrapped oysters?
Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Oh, it's so good. You take smoked oysters, you wrap them and bake them, you fry them.
I'm not a seafood guy, so I don't know that sounds appealing to me.
You know, I love seafood and that I love bacon, and that I gotta try that now.
Well, I mean,
I'll make it for you.
I mean, bacon with. I mean, you could wrap ice cream in bacon, and it makes it better. I mean,
should.
Bacon is bacon.
I just think about what that would do to my libido.
Well,
Bacon-wrapped oysters. Wow. That would put me into overdrive.
The Lord of fun and wonder, ladies and
That's
gentlemen.
me, man.
Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk here about today, guys. We're going to talk about the Kevin Hart situation, what's going on there. Has Amazon lost faith in the Aeronauts? Amongst all the huge praise coming out for Joker, there's also some high-profile outlets that are giving some negative stuff. What does that ultimately mean? We're going to talk about all that kind of stuff and more in just a minute. But before we get to all that, one thing off the top we're going to talk about here is this. Now, Hobbs and Shaw, as of course the spin-off to the Fast and Furious franchise, the first spin-off they've done for the Fast and Furious franchise, came out, opened about $300 million. It then crossed the $600 million mark and is now just shy of the $700 million mark. It's going to cross that mark at some point, finish around $700 million, $700 a little bit plus, which is huge. But one of the interesting pieces of information that's come out is this. We know that particularly when it comes to action blockbuster kind of films, that China has become more and more of a really important market for a lot of stuff. Not for a lot of movies that come out. I mean, a lot of movies just won't play in China or won't get the type of attention in China, but particularly the big blockbusters and action films. Hobbs and Shaw is a really good example of that. What's being reported right now, this is coming out of Variety, is that after 10 days in China, Hobbs and Shaw has actually made more money in China than it has in 3 weeks in North American box office. Now, I believe the number, it's close. The numbers around there somewhere are. In China, Hobbs and Shaw has made about $164 million now, just in China. In the North American box office, made like 157 so far, and still going. And overall, it's a little over $680 million worldwide now, closing in on that $700 million mark. Not bad for a spinoff. Not bad for something that's a couple of secondary characters, neither of which were original characters in the series. So that's gone over pretty well. But it does raise an interesting question about this whole thing about China. Rob, I look at this, and all I see personally, and maybe you see some deeper meaning in this, but what I see is just kind of a reaffirmation of what we've already kind of known, that films like big action blockbusters with some big movie stars, and there's no bigger movie star out there right now than a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that those types of movies will play great in China. You know, the big comic book movies, the big action movies, stuff like that. You know, Booksmart, not going to do so well in China. The Farewell. Well, actually, The Farewell might be an exception. It'll probably do all right in China. You know, but The Peanut Butter Falcon or whatever. These aren't films that are going to play well in China. I don't even think Joker will play well in China, or even if it's going to get a Chinese release. But Rob, you're seeing something like this, and you're seeing these, you know, big numbers coming in China, now exceeding the domestic box office. Do you see something more there than what I'm seeing at this point as far as the trends go?
No, but you know, as what I like to call the master of fun and wonder, now that I like to call myself that, I think a movie like Hobbs and Shaw delivers exactly that to Chinese audiences. It's full of fun, and the action makes you marvel and wonder at, oh my God, how did they do that? And I think that movies like Booksmart or comedies don't necessarily travel well internationally because they're so colloquial, they're so steeped in the culture they come from that it's hard to translate. I mean, when you're doing, cultures are different. And I think when you have cars driving fast or people fighting with one another, that's sort of universal. We all understand around the world, everybody knows what happens when two cars are chasing each other at high speed. This is not something that is going to be lost in translation. And I think that's why action movies travel well internationally, because it's kind of the universal language. But yet, Booksmart becomes, when you're watching the story of two girls about to leave high school and going to college and dealing with girl things that happen when you're that age, it's different than what's going on in, say, China or anywhere in Asia, because the culture's different. And so
Good Boys isn't going to play well in China.
No, because I think especially because Americans are so puerile and a little immature when it comes to their own sexuality, that I think a lot of that humor, it's just like in Denmark or something, or it was in Norway, that was a kid's movie. Like here it's rated R or something, and in different European countries it's like, so they're making sex jokes, who cares? Mm-hmm. But here it's like,
we give
kids
everyone
found
a condom
dildos.
when they are 3.
What's that?
I said we give everyone a condom when they are 3. It's fine.
We don't want that 7-year-old pregnancy.
What kind of accent was that?
It was better than anyone I would have done. That's for sure. Hey, listen, what do you guys think about this? Do you think there's like some significant shift here represented by the fact that Hobbs and Shaw has actually made more money in China than it has in North American box office? Or do you maybe think like me that, this is just an extension of what we already knew? Or do you think there's some other angle to this that we're not considering? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, we're going to move on to our main topics of the day. But before we get to our main topics, I want to encourage you guys to do a couple of things for this show if you appreciate and like watching shows like this. First of all, go on over and click the subscribe button. Make sure you become a subscriber to the YouTube channel here. Keep up to date on all the things we got going on. If you enjoy these kinds of videos and discussion, make sure right now just go on over and click the thumbs up on the video. And also make sure that you keep the conversation going and leave a comment in the comment section. Or if you've got something you really want read on air, go ahead and use the super chat feature. It guarantees that you get your question or comment read in the video, and it's a great way to support the channel as well. Okay, with that down, let's move on to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with our main topics by going over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you'll see a form. Fill it out with your comment or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down and out of the way, Chris, what is our first main topic today?
This is from Jalen Pryo. Hi, John. Shout out from Niagara Falls, Ontario.
I love Niagara Falls.
So I just seen reports claiming that James Gunn is now wanting to do a director's recut of his first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Now, I love Marvel and all, but can we assume this has gone too far? Or is the new MCU DLC the new trend? And will it make Marvel's wave bring a bad taste in movie lovers' mouths? How do you feel about another re-release, recut?
I hate it. I hate it. And look, let me throw out this one asterisk here. I love James Gunn. I love James Gunn. No, I think, first of all, I think he's just a really cool dude. But on top of that, I just love him as a filmmaker. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, all that kind of stuff. So understand that first. But that's stupid. And now look, we've talked a little bit about recently about the re-release trends, and I'll repeat some of the things I said before. But for those of you who don't know what they're talking about, James Gunn was on social media, and somebody was asking him about maybe a re-release, and he talked about some song pieces he wasn't able to put in the movie for, and basically James said this: "It's a dream of mine to do a re-release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 with Livin' Thing and a couple of other small additions." Now, that was one of the pieces of music. Now, of course, one of the hallmarks of Guardians of the Galaxy was the incredible soundtrack. Just an absolutely fabulous, fantastic soundtrack that kind of became the heartbeat of the movie. It was great. And there were actually a couple of pieces James wanted to use in the film that he didn't actually get the opportunity to. So he's saying, now I'd like to do a remake. But this sounds like scraping metal nails across a really big chalkboard to me. Now, look, we've talked before about this, but I'll say it again. This awful, horrendous trend of studios now doing re-releases 5 weeks, 7 weeks, after a film's been a theatrical release is a growing thing. And I remember when they did it for Endgame, when it was still in theaters, I said, I don't like making slippery slope arguments because they can be problematic, but this could be a slippery slope. When you see a movie now saying, oh, we put this in theater, but we didn't show you everything, come back again and pay us some more money and watch the real thing now just 6 or 7 or 8 weeks later when the thing was still in theaters. I said, this could become a slippery slope where we'd be in danger was if this actually makes some money, every other studio is going to pop their heads up like, what are those animals in the African wild? The little ones that, Timon. What was Timon again? Meerkats. Like every other studio is going to be like a meerkat. There's a way for us to squeeze more money out of everybody? Okay, we'll do a release, and 6 weeks later, we'll say, now come see the extended edition. Now come see the director's cut. Now come see, this version where Leonardo DiCaprio touches himself in scene 5. I don't know. They'll come up with something.
Wait, what?
I'm just making that part up. So they'll come up with something to do it. And what I've said is we will be in danger of movies becoming the next victims of the whole video game trend of DLCs. Hey, you bought the game. Now you got to buy the next part. It's like, wait a minute, what? I paid. Remember the great days when you go to the store and buy a video game and you had the full game. You had everything in that game. And once in a while when there were updates, they just give you the update for free because you bought the game. Not anymore. Now there's loot crates and DLCs and all this kind of nonsense, pay to win kind of, and that is going to come to the movie. So what have we seen since? We've seen Spider-Man Far From Home now getting its big 7-minute extended cut. Then we got Midsommar. It's got now come see the director's cut. And now we got James Gunn sticking his head up like a meerkat. Hey, I'd love to do a Guardians re-release. The one thing I'll say about the Guardians re-release, though, guys, here's what I'll say about the Guardians re-release, is at least that's a movie that was done and out of theaters years ago. Yeah. I have a little bit more tolerance for something like that. It's like come back years later for if you want to experience it in the big screen again. You probably already have it on home video, but if you want to come see, I give that one a little bit more slack. But I believe, and I said this on open mic this weekend, I believe that we are in a position right now, we're in a turning point that we as fans should very much be aware of. And that is, we as fans should put our foot down and say, no, we will not support this type of stuff, because if we don't, I guarantee you, we are heading within 2 years, we are heading for a reality where every film, just like today, it's understood that every big major film does reshoots. It used to be a very rare thing, but now every big major film plans it's just going to be a commonly accepted thing that there's one release on a movie's release date, and 8 weeks later is some kind of extended or special release where now you got to come back and pay more. You may think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you that's where this is headed if we as film fans don't put our foot down. And now just having filmmakers like James Gunn, who I love and respect, sticking his head up like a meerkat and going, I'd like to do it. We've had like 3 of them now. In the span of 2 months, we've had 3 of them, and every studio is looking to see if they can get a little bit more cheddar off this big spinning wheel of cheese. Anyway, Rob, you're seeing all this. And now James Gunn is talking about this. Do you think my worries are warranted, or do you think I'm being just a wee bit paranoid about that?
Oh, I think they're warranted. Dude, I went and saw the director's cut of Midsommar this weekend at the ArcLight, and I'm one of those, I'm guilty. Not only that, but I bought Apocalypse Now Final Cut on 4K, which is amazing. That 4K Blu-ray is incredible. And again, in 1 week, I purchased or gave money to 2 different director's cuts. My whole feeling about it is I would rather see a single vision of a film. I mean, what I don't like is the fact that there are filmmakers that are putting out films, and I know for my own self that I want to make sure that the movie that we make in the first place is the best version of the film. And I think this reconsidering, like with Spider-Man, I haven't seen the new Spider-Man version, but knowing that we get to see that bit that we saw in the trailers of him protecting his neighborhood, I think that probably would have benefited the movie. And it was sad to lose it. And I think that when we have films like Spider-Man Far From Home, that when there's when what is it? What am I? Fun and wonder? When there's a scene of fun and wonder that is taken out of a movie for time, there's a really weird thing that happens. People are like, it has to be shorter. Well, sometimes movies can feel longer the shorter they are. If you give something to audiences is that they love, like Spider-Man protecting his neighborhood, that doesn't necessarily make the movie faster in terms of its or shorter in terms of its. What I don't even know. What am I saying? It could be good to have those scenes in there.
Welcome to Monday, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
Welcome to Monday.
I just think that I don't like the idea that films are being put out that are unsatisfying to the filmmakers, and they have to go back and do this, or they had it on deck within like, oh, I've got this other version, let's put it out. I feel I think, John, it'll be backfire. It's not good in the long run. It's one thing, like you said, Apocalypse Now, Final Cut 40 years after the fact. That's one thing. Or Oliver Stone doing 100,000 different cuts of Alexander. That's another thing. But putting out Spider-Man Far From Home a month later or 2 months later with extra scenes, I think it's not good. And it's not like they're making a ton of money off this either. Show me the finished film initially.
Chris, like my fear here about that, we are going to be heading for a near future, like maybe just 2 years away, where it's just become kind of a norm where every big film has its regular release and about 8 weeks later, the real release with the extra footage you didn't see the first time. Like, I fear we are heading towards that DLC thing. Mm-hmm. Do you think I'm right to be worried about that, or am I being just, a little bit paranoid here?
I do think you're right to be worried about that, because we've already seen, like you said, 3 in about a month span, and those theater spaces are going to take away from other little films. If we have to keep putting Spider-Man back in theaters over and over again, we're not going to get movies like The Farewell in theaters for a long time. We're not going to get movies like Booksmart in a theater for a long time, which is a shame, because those are great movies that people need to see. People in the chat and on this show have talked about the fear of Disney kind of being this big bad monster of sorts, homogenizing everything. Think about that in terms of a theater with re-releases being the new norm too. If we're constantly getting those big action movies across the board, everyone always getting their re-release, an extra 7 minutes here, an extra scene here, an unfinished scene there, it's taking away from all the other types of genre films that are out there. Unless all of a sudden we're going to get like the latest Dame Judi Dench is like, and now with another 7 minutes of her doing a Victorian era scene, which I don't think people would be excited about, except for me.
I'd be on board for that.
Yeah,
wait a minute.
Wait a minute, that actually sounds really good.
I would go to that one.
But John, I do have to say that yesterday, I know it was a holiday weekend, but I did go see Midsummer at the ArcLight. Mm-hmm. It was 3/4 full. I was really surprised to see that director's cut, just how many people were in the theater. And ultimately, if movies are making money, especially a movie like Midsummer from a distributor like A24, I'm kind of all for it. It really, it's problematic.
But the whole notion, like, here's the thing that I don't mind. I don't mind, like, I mind a lot less the idea of a Guardians of the Galaxy, which came out years ago, and doing hey, come experience on the big screen again, because how often are we going to get a chance to watch it on the big screen again? Very, very rarely. So that's less of a problem to me than the idea of that now studios are going to see this, and it's going to become an intentional thing. We will withhold certain scenes from the first release of the film, so we specifically have something to add as an attraction for the second release of the film that happens while the first release is still in theaters. And that studios are going to try to take advantage of that, because listen, as much as we may not want to admit it, we are easily conditioned. The audience, the studios and the system knows how to condition us, that we just, something that was irritating one day, they know how to condition us to the point that, oh, now it's not an irritant, now we just accept it. So they push it a little bit further and we get irritated, but then we become conditioned to it. And before you know it, we're in a place where they're like giving us a movie, we pay $15 to go see it, only to find out 7 weeks later, that wasn't the real full version of the movie. And now if we pay the money to go see it again, now we'll get it. And that's the world I'm afraid of.
Well, can I throw out a question to you then?
Yes.
So, on Netflix, there is a new version of Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight.
Right.
He went back and added more to the film, and they have released it episodically. So there's now four episodes, four parts of The Hateful Eight. How do you feel about something like that?
See, that's a little bit different, because the same question comes up in the same vein as like Lord of the Rings puts out a special edition that's like a 4-hour cut. I'm a little bit. I'm more accepting of that because it's a different. It's a different release altogether. It's not going to the theater to see a movie, because when I go to pay to see the movie, show me the movie. If you want to get me back into the theater again, it should be because I love the movie and I just want to come back and see it again. If you want to add extra stuff to a different medium, like the home video release, if you want to add bonus things to really try to entice people to come back or to buy the home video, whereas maybe a lot of times they'll think, I saw it in theaters and that's good enough. I'm okay with that because it's a different format. It's a different thing. We're out of the theatrical experience now. So on that level, I'm okay with it. Hateful Eight was out years ago in the theater. They want to do something special for the home video release. I'm actually okay with that. And maybe I'm creating false distinctions. But in my head, that's a very clear distinction, but maybe I'm creating a false distinction there. That's something I've got to be aware of, perhaps. But I just feel like the theatrical release and experience should be one thing. You want to do something else with the home video release or something a few years later of bringing it back to theaters, that's a little bit different. But I don't know, like maybe I'm making much ado about nothing here. Guys, what do you guys think about this? Do you think that, no, hell yeah, the studios are greedy, man. They're going to try to get every dollar so that they can, even if it means screwing us on the first release of a film? Or am I just being paranoid about this and just looking too far into saying, John, it's just a couple of films that did it in a month. Don't worry about it. Let me know what you think. Make your arguments for me. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's now move on to our second main topic today. Chris, what is main topic number 2?
This is from Fedor V. Hi, John. Just saw that Kevin Hart got into a major car accident, and they're saying he has severe back injuries. I haven't heard any more details than that. What is it with movie stars getting in car accidents, and how do you think this will affect his upcoming movies?
All right, yeah, so for those of you guys who have not heard, this broke yesterday that Kevin Hart was indeed, as I bring up this information here that I misplaced earlier, but Kevin Hart was indeed in what looks like a pretty serious car accident. I won't show them here, but the pictures of the car are the types of pictures that you will force to be asked yourself, how did anybody survive this? Some more of the details. This is from CNN right now. Regarding this, actor comedian Kevin Hart and 2 others were involved in a car crash in Calabasas, California early Sunday, according to a California Highway Patrol incident report obtained by CNN. Hart and the driver, Jared Black, sustained quote-unquote major back injuries and were transported to nearby hospitals for treatment, the report states. Black was driving Hart's 1970 Plymouth Barracuda, according to the report, when he lost control of the vehicle and went off the road and rolled down an embankment. Now, this is a car that Kevin Hart just bought for himself as a birthday present, and which, I mean, really, he let somebody else drive his birthday present for himself? But whatever. So obviously, first things first, all well wishes out to Kevin Hart and the other people who were involved in the incident. The one kind of relieving piece of news to me, because obviously the number one thing my mind goes to when I hear about this is, oh my God, was somebody drunk? Was somebody high? Was somebody under the influence? According to their police report, nobody was under the influence of alcohol. Little bit relieved. That doesn't make their injuries any less severe, but at least I'm a little bit relieved to hear that there wasn't any of that involved. So that's a good thing. And I can't be the only person in the world, guys. I cannot be the only person in the world that when I heard about this Kevin Hart thing, the next thing my mind went to was Paul Walker. I mean, that was like the next thing. It's like, oh my God, another thing. And, there have been some very famous incidents of celebrities, movie stars, whatever, either becoming really injured or dying in
Tracy
car wrecks.
Morgan.
Yeah,
That horrible
that was a
accident.
huge. That's the first one Ann brought up yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually, made her think instantly of Tracy Morgan and all that kind of stuff. It's really unfortunate. So that is clearly first and foremost. But to go to the topic of the question and what we like to focus mostly here on our show is, what type of effect will this have on the movies? Obviously, that is by far a secondary concern. But acknowledging that is what we're here to talk about, is the movie business. Here's an interesting thing right now. According to his IMDb page at the moment, Kevin Smith has no less than like 8 or like 7 films. Kevin Hart. I said Kevin Smith again.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart has no less than like 7 projects coming out. Now, Jumanji, that's no problem. He's already shot it. Fatherhood, no problem. He's already shot it. What comes into question here is he's got other projects like My Own Worst Enemy, Uptown Saturday Night, The Great Outdoors, Ride Along 3, and Monopoly, although he's only been rumored for that right now. Whenever, depending on how bad these quote-unquote serious back injuries are. It's very nondescriptive. For all we know, I mean, he didn't wait around for an ambulance. He had one of his other staff people pick him up and I believe take him to the hospital. So we don't know what the extent is. I don't know if he's got a sore back. I don't know if he's got lacerations. I don't know if it could be more damage than that. But it does raise questions when we're talking about the movie side of it. Will this throw off his schedule? Obviously, it must. And when we were Rob and I were talking about this beforehand, is that movie world and scheduling is so intricate and so delicate and so fragile. Like, things are scheduled down to the hour. And if, like Kevin Hart, if his starting shooting one movie gets affected, that'll push production back, which will affect the next movie he was supposed to do, which will affect the next movie he was supposed to do, which will affect the next movie he's supposed to do. So, Rob, as we're talking about this, understanding and acknowledging, look, the main most important thing here is that he recovers, that he does well, all that kind of stuff.
100%.
But that's, I mean, we're not medical people. That's outside our purview. So just talking about this by far secondary issue of the movies he has going on, this could affect the schedule of a lot of upcoming movies in a very serious way and push a lot of things off on that matter. Obviously, that's a secondary concern to Hart's condition, but in talking about the movie business itself, this could throw a lot of movie schedules out of whack. How do you think they're going to manage this?
Well, again, it's really tough. I mean, Kevin Hart's one of the most in-demand, successful actors working today. And as you said, I mean, I hope everything is okay. Back injuries are never a good thing. Luckily, he was taken away from the scene, and I guess he got out. He was taken away by one of his own personal security people, so that gives me hope. I really like Kevin Hart as a performer. I really like him as a presence, but I do think that I mean, it falls like dominoes. You know, these actors who, whether it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Kevin Hart, they're busy guys, and it's not just them. You've got whole crews of people. You got all the other actors that are also in the movies that they're supposed to appear in. It can be a domino effect across the industry as well, because hundreds of people work on films. So it could really be problematic for the next couple of years for not just Kevin Hart, but for a lot of other people. So I wish him a speedy recovery, not just for him and his family, but also for all of these projects that a lot of other families rely on to keep bread on the table.
So obviously all of our best thoughts here from all of us here at the John Campea Show, not just to Kevin, but also the other people involved in the accident. I mean, obviously we don't know what the details are and all that kind of stuff. And even if it was due to recklessness or whatever, and we don't know that, but even if it was, you never like to hear about people getting hurt. So all of our best thoughts and well wishes to all those people, including Kevin, who are involved in that, and we wish them a speedy recovery. Okay, with that down, let's now move on to main topic number 3. Chris, what is our third main topic today?
Third topic comes from Jay. Welp, a few Joker reviews came out over the weekend, and as expected, it seems it's nothing short of amazing. I know I can't wait to see it. Although it's exciting, do you think all of the early perfect scores are over the top, or do you believe the hype? Thanks.
Well, okay, so here's the thing about Joker. And this I found kind of interesting and a little bit surprising yesterday. When words, obviously for those who have not heard, Joker has now debuted at the Venice Film Festival. So it's out at the Venice Film Festival and doing its thing. And the reviews, the first shot that we heard about it was that the reviews were outstanding. The word masterpiece was used by more than one of the outlets. On top of that, I got the hiccups. On top of all that, they, a couple of outlets like IGN, very notably, gave it a 10 out of 10. People, Oscar buzz and all that kind of stuff going around it as well. However, that being said, once the reviews started hitting Rotten Tomatoes, you started to see who liked it, but more importantly, and for this discussion at any rate, who didn't like it. Now, while at this moment, the Joker is holding an 88%. Let me just double check that. Right now, Joker is actually holding a 80, where is it? There it is, 89%. Now with 35 reviews counted. Now, I was doing an open mic yesterday, and when I double checked that, I was actually surprised because with all the initial social media buzz I heard coming out about Joker And as excited as that got me, when everybody's talking masterpiece, 10 out of 10, Oscar buzz for Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar buzz for the movie overall, perhaps the second comic book based movie ever to get an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture, all that kind of stuff. I was expecting not necessarily to see 100% rating, but I was expecting to see in the high 90s. And then when I opened it up and I looked, I said, okay, 89, which, make no mistake about it, 89 is a terrific critic score. Most filmmakers would kill to get an 89 on their movie. That's a terrific critic score. It's just that with the initial wave of buzz that we heard, I was surprised because I thought it would be significant. Well, not significantly. You can't get much higher than 89, but I thought it would be markedly higher. I thought it would be into the 90s. What then surprised me even more was as I started going through, I started seeing who didn't like the film. And it wasn't, Eddie Freeman 69's YouTube channel. It wasn't, Bob's Big Movie Podcast. It wasn't the John Campea Show. It wasn't these tiny insignificant things. We got places like Time Magazine. We got places like The Wrap. We have places like RogerEbert.com. We have places like, there are some big, significant outlets who eat movies like this up. Like outlets who actually really liked movies like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and things like that. And they didn't like it. And it made me pause. Like, now look, as I always say here on the show, no movie is for everybody. All film is subjective, and as a result, some people are going to like them, some people aren't going to like them. And that's just to be expected. But I remember in the midst of all this perfection talk to see which ones, and granted, there are only 35 reviews out right now. So keep that in mind. There's only 35 reviews out. Not everybody was at Venice Film Festival. But to see which, outlets were giving it negative reviews made me scratch my head a little bit. It's like, really? Like, these are the types of movies you normally like. Why don't you like it? Now, I'll say this. I have said for over a year now that this is one of my most highly anticipated films. And I think it's an important movie because it is finally the movie that is giving us a comic book based movie that is not a part of some wider expanded cinematic universe. Thank God. And I want this to work desperately because I want Marvel and DC to see that good, true, standalone movies that are separated from cinematic universes can live alongside of cinematic universe movies. And there's a lot of value to be found in that. And I think a successful Joker will go a long way to convincing them to do that. I'll say this, though. As I read through the negative reviews of the Joker, I will point this out, that I'm okay with anybody not liking a movie because, like, if it's a comedy, they didn't think it was funny. Hey, you know what? There are critics who didn't think Good Boy was funny. The Good Boys was funny. They watched it. They saw the humor. They didn't work for them. They didn't think it was funny, so they say so. No problem with that. No problem whatsoever. I would have a problem with a negative review of The Good Boys if somebody came along and said, there wasn't enough drama. It's like, well, it wasn't supposed to be a drama. Like, if you didn't like it because you didn't think it was funny and you thought it was stupid and you didn't like the performances, that's cool. But at least don't like it for what it is. Don't dislike it for what it was never meant to be. And, I read a couple of these negative reviews and I'm reading some comments like, well, if you take away the social commentary and if you take away the character that it's the Joker, and if you take away, he descended into madness because he was abused both by society and maybe as a child, then there's not much left there. The first thing I wanted to say was, but you don't take those things away. Those are a part of the movie. It's like saying about Good Boys, yeah, Good Boys, but if you take away the comedy, there's not much left there. Bad movie. But the comedy, you don't take away the comedy. The comedy is a part of the movie. The social commentary and the reflection of what drove into madness and the fact that it is the Joker, I get it. Like, I myself, you guys know, I myself will say, like, for instance, the El Camino trailer, right? I'm like, hey, if you take away the fact that it's a Breaking Bad movie, I don't think anybody's excited about this trailer. I don't think there's much to it. That's one thing to say that about a trailer, but you're actually talking about the movie. And all these things you're saying, well, if you take these things away, there's not much left there. Maybe that's true, but they are there. That is a part of the movie. They are integral to the movie, and thus that's part of the total package. So you should evaluate it on that level. If I read, and one or two of the critics that didn't like it, they were saying, look, I just didn't think The social commentary they were making, I don't think was very good. I thought it was too thin. I didn't think they actually explored it very much. I can respect that. I do. I completely respect that. But some of these reviews they're talking about in terms of, they say the performance was great. What they were going for was ambitious. The fact that they did the social commentary is a reflection not just of the 1980s and 90s, but where we are today. But if you take all that out, there's not much there. That part I take issue with. I do take issue with that. So, Rob, let me ask you this. We're seeing, of course, we heard the first big flood of overwhelmingly positive stuff. We're now seeing that there are some significant outlets giving it actually a negative review. If I were to ask you right now, what do you think the chances are that this Joker movie gets Oscar buzz? When it comes down to it, Joaquin Phoenix gets nominated for a Best Actor award, and that Joker itself gets nominated for Best Picture. Obviously, you haven't seen the film yet, so we're just speculating here. But hearing what we're hearing coming out of Venice, what are your thoughts on that right now?
Well, I mean, that is a very good question, and I read a lot of the reviews that you read, and a lot of, tour de force performance from Joaquin Phoenix, which I think, look, whether he's in the Joker, whether he's Commodus or whatever, Joaquin Phoenix is one of our great actors.
Oh, so good.
And when you're front and center, when you're the titular character in a film, and you're literally twisting your physique around to show how twisted your mind is, it looked to me like this is exactly the kind of performance that gets noticed. And this whole idea, the whole idea behind the film, I think is a good one. And the negative reviews like you that I was reading, people thought that it's not more than it is or something. Or people saying it's an incel anthem movie and all of this. And I'm like, but it's supposed to be about how our callous, uncaring modern society can do this to a human being, and how any one of us could be in the position that Arthur Fleck, the Joker, is in this movie. And I'm like, it seems to know what it was wanted to say and wanted to be, and it seemed to go and do that. Now, the reviews that I've read that were negative were objecting to that very idea. Like, this is too heavy-handed. It's evocative of Taxi Driver or King of Comedy. And I'm like, yeah, and? So if the filmmakers set out to tell a story, whether you think that story is good or cliche or whatever, my whole thing to judge a film is, did the filmmakers succeed in making the movie they intended to make? And by all accounts, they did. So I'm really excited about this movie, and the fact that it is a throwback to the 70s and 80s, and it is overtly honoring the films of Martin Scorsese, including hiring Robert De Niro to play a thinly veiled character from another Martin Scorsese film. Bring all that stuff on. It's the negative reviews I read seem to be a little contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, this movie's, when it comes right down to it, it's still a comic book adaptation, and who are you to try and make a comic book adaptation this relevant? Well, to me, it's the next step. It's the evolution of the comic book character in film, and I think it could only be a good thing. Because comic book movies can be many things to many people, John. Ghost World was a comic adaptation. Road to Perdition was a comic adaptation. History of Violence was a comic adaptation. So why can't a movie like The Joker be like this? I'm deliriously excited about this movie. I can't wait.
Yeah, and again, I have no issue. None, with anybody watching a movie and saying what it did not work for me. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Even if the director made the exact movie they were trying to make. If a director is trying to make a movie about a big pile of shit that sits there and they just film it for 2 hours, they accomplish that, but that doesn't make a good movie. And if you watched a movie and you didn't like it for what it was, and it did not work for you, and you had issues with it, I respect that. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Where I start to take issue, though, is when it's like, but if you take these elements away, then you're not left with much else. Yeah, but those are the elements it was based on. You can't just remove that part of its identity. Mm-hmm. Like you can say, oh yeah, well yeah, Khabib is the greatest combat artist in the world. Yeah, but if you cut off his left arm, he's not all that good of a fighter. But he has his left arm. That's exactly what this is saying to me. Yeah, Khabib is the greatest UFC fighter in the world. But if you cut off one of his legs, he's probably not all that good. But he has his legs, and that's the point. And that's where I take issue with some of the negative reviews. The negative reviews that'll come out and saying, we watched it and we just didn't like it because it didn't work for us, I respect that. I do, because that's going to be every movie, no matter what. But it's the ones that are saying, we don't like it because if you take out these things that are great in it, then you're not left with much else. It's like saying, yeah, the cake was great, but if you took out the flour, it's not really good cake. But the flour is there. I don't know. Chris, you're hearing about all this. You heard of the initial huge buzz. Now you're seeing some of the negative ones coming out too. Where do you think this leaves Joker right now in terms of its Oscar chances? Understanding that we're just speculating because we haven't seen the film yet.
I think this still has tons of potential. And of the negative reviews I read, the Times one really was the only one that seemed to be an actual compelling review of, actual points to make in there, because they took issue with, this didn't seem like it had a cohesive plot, but rather a series of events that kind of just happened. There wasn't an ongoing story aside for this character introspective. I would have liked more of a plot. Sometimes the acting seemed erratic, which it's an erratic character. So is it over the top? Is it him being his character? And Rob already brought up the incel thing. It was one of the lines that stuck out to me the most in that review was the Joker could be a patron saint of incels.
Right. Yeah. I saw that line too.
I'm part of like a women's filmmaking group, and I've seen people had that kind of concern too going into it, of maybe like fetishizing or glamorizing, violence towards women, or elevating a domestic terrorist and glamorizing that. But I think that is the point. That is the story that you're supposed to be seeing.
Yep.
How somebody who has those values can become not only the way he is, but kind of an icon to other people. In comic books, you see people all the time who super fan out and ship Joker and Harley. Which is crazy to me. That's bonkers to me that people would be like, what's really romantic? Oh, that guy who abuses the shit out of his girlfriend mentally and physically. Oh my God, so into it. There are so many people who do find these characters glamorous and interesting and relate to them. And so I feel like as an audience member, someone who goes, oh, I don't get that at all. I would love to see the journey of how someone can, one, rationalize all those thoughts, and two, why that character connects to other people. I want to know that. I want to know the psychology of that. So these negative reviews actually make me more interested in what's going to happen, because I think it's going to be a discussion piece.
I think you're absolutely right, and if it already is. I mean, the divisiveness in these reviews, and people talk about, the patron. I didn't read the patron saint of incels. I didn't read that.
That line
was
was like,
really
whoa.
But I mean, when you've got guys like Elliot Rodger who write a 150-page manifesto about why he went and shot up a bunch of people at UCSB, I mean, it's like, this is really going on.
Yeah.
It's not like there's people are wondering, why are there so many mass shooting events and what's going on? Well, there's a reason, and it's a psychological reason, and our society is forging these people. And I think maybe Joker is exactly the kind of movie we need right now to shed some light so people understand, and maybe let's not be that way.
Yeah.
Right. Now, and look, just to restate the obvious again, I haven't seen the movie.
Me neither.
For all I know, I'm going to watch it and hate it. Maybe we'll all hate it. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. All I know is this. I think this is a movie that is desperately needed right now for a genre that I think needs to have things changed up a little bit. So I'm super excited for that. For a character like this, that if you're ever going to do a movie about a villainous character, this is the movie to do. I love the look of this thing. I cannot wait. And again, I don't want to be misquoted here. I take no issue with anybody who watches this movie and on its own merits, it doesn't work for them. I have no issue with that. That's fine. I'm just saying, let's not then judge the movie based on what we think, if you take it away, isn't going to be there, or what we think. See, I've said this before too, Rob. I've said, one of my fears, I said on this show about the Joker movie, is that there are going to be a number of people who go into the movie expecting a Heath Ledger Joker, expecting a Jack Joker. They're expecting to see a more traditional comic book movie, just with the wild, crown prince of crime. And it's going to be a very different movie, and maybe they're not going to be ready for that, and it might leave them with a bad taste in their mouth. That's my one fear. But I've said this before, I will say it again. If I got two movies that I can only see for the rest of the year, it's going to be Joker and Episode 9. Those are the two. I put those two ahead of Ford v Ferrari, which I'm ludicrously excited about, and a number of other great-looking projects that are coming out. There are only two movies I can see the rest of this year. It's going to be Joker and Episode 9, and I got high hopes. High hopes for both of them. So
I just think it's great that we've got between Joker and It. I think evil clowns to scare the heck out of kids coming back in a big way is what's most important.
No.
You know what'd be funny? You know, if somebody brought this up in a live chat to me once. Let's say Joaquin Phoenix does get nominated for Best Performance. That'll be twice that a comic book movie has won an acting award, and it would both be for portraying the same character. It's just interesting. Just an interesting.
That is
thing.
interesting.
Just a little. And then there were some people who could make the argument that there was an argument back in the day that Jack should have been nominated for his portrayal of Joker as well. So it's just kind of interesting. Everybody's going to want to play the Joker now. There you go. Guys,
Gotta go full Joker, though.
Gotta go full Joker.
Full Joker.
What do you think about this whole thing, guys? Were you surprised to see that there are some high-profile things giving it negative reviews? Do you think that's going to affect the overall Oscar push? Does it affect how excited you are about this whole thing? I know it doesn't affect mine, but what do you guys think about all that? Jump down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's now move on to the fourth main topic today. Chris, what is our fourth main topic today?
This is from Christopher DiCostanza. Apparently, Amazon is dropping the 90-day window policy it used up to now going the Netflix route. The Aeronauts, which was originally going to just theaters, is now getting, like Netflix films, a very limited theatrical release and then straight to Amazon Prime. Is Amazon going the Netflix way, whole hog, or is the Aeronauts a turnkey?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I mean, look, one of the things that I've been a little bit critical of Netflix in the past is, obviously you can't do this with all their original movies, but that they have never decided to actually take that step and go, you know what, let's give one of our original movies a true theatrical release. And let's follow all the rules that all the other studios have to follow, put it in theaters, give it a 90-day window in theaters, and then release it on Netflix. Maybe make a little bit of money, give it a lot of promo and high-profile exposure, then put it on our thing. Amazon has done that and had some success. One of the biggest examples of success that they had, obviously, was with The Big Sick, which is one of my most pleasant surprise movies of the past decade. To this day, I love that movie. If you haven't seen it, you should. So, you got this high-profile movie coming out here in The Aeronauts. That's coming out that a lot of people are talking about, all that kind of stuff, understandably so. And originally the plan, Rob, was for them to give this movie a 90-day theatrical release, but apparently now they've changed that. They're going to put it into a couple of theaters just to say it had a theatrical, to give it Oscar qualifications, I suppose, but they're not doing the 90-day window thing. They're immediately then going to put it right on their Amazon streaming service. The question that gets posed is, does that show that Amazon actually doesn't have faith in this movie? And I would say I believe there's two answers to that question. Number one, does it mean they don't have faith in this movie quality-wise? I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're questioning the quality of this movie. I think I've heard some Amazon people talking about this movie. They seem to be very, very happy with the quality of this movie and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think they've lost faith in this movie from a quality standpoint. However, and we talked about this recently as well when we were talking about The Irishman, I do believe Amazon questions whether the expense that it's going to take them to give this thing a theatrical release, a wide release with a true marketing campaign to get people aware of it and putting it out there, I believe that Amazon doesn't have faith that the money this movie could make in theaters would justify the expense they would need to have in order to put this thing in theatrical release. This can look like a good movie and yet look like a movie that won't make any money at the same time. And personally, while I have no insider information on this, that seems to me to be the most common sense thing here, is that they probably believe the movie's good, but they probably also don't believe that this is the type of movie that would make back the kind of money they would need to make back to put in the extra expense of distributing it. That's how I see it, Rob. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think there's a lot that you're correct about. I think the real thing that's going on here is movie-going audiences. First of all, it's very expensive to put a movie in theaters because, like you're saying, you have to market it. And people have to know it's coming out. But second of all, it has to be a movie that you can get a mass audience to come out and see. And we know, we've talked a lot about how movies like Booksmart, one of your favorite movies of the year,
yep,
people didn't turn out for it. They didn't turn up for it. I think ultimately Amazon knows that The Aeronauts is a film that might not be connecting with the kind of audience it would need to make it worthwhile to put in theaters. You know, if they put this movie out, are you going to get a big audience to come see it? And I think they probably have realized that they wanted to at one point. They hoped that they would get that kind of an audience. But this is a historical epic. It's, well, whether it's an epic or not, but it's not exactly an action adventure story. It's loosely based on a true story, and I don't know if the audience is there for it. I think Amazon realizes that, and they're really, like, Manchester by the Sea was another movie they put out that was nominated for Oscars. I thought was a wonderful film. I don't think Amazon is adverse to putting their movies out in theaters at all. I think they love that, but they're also not stupid. And they put this out. They might put tens of millions of dollars of marketing budget behind it, but if they know people aren't going to show up, it's like, who's going to go out? Oh, Mom, I gotta go. Your 12-year-old kid's not going to be like, I need to see the Aeronauts, Mom, let's all go. Like, who's going to go see this movie in the theater? I don't know. I would. It looks good to me, but do I want to go see this movie more than I want to see, say, Joker? No. So it's a tough call, and then it becomes, I want to see movies like this made. I don't want Amazon to be like, we're only going to make movies that are successful in the theaters, because then all we're going to get is big spectacles and Toy Story 6 and Avengers 87. And as much as I want to see those movies, I do want to see this movie.
Right.
But yeah. I don't know if it's going to be, it appeals to me, but is it going to appeal to a movie-going audience that makes it worthwhile to put in a multiplex?
I know, and you know what? The fact is, one of the interesting things here that they're not really taking advantage of is that we're seeing a re-teaming of the Theory of Everything pair, like with Felicity Jones and Eddie Redmayne. I mean, that to me, it makes it really fascinating. That was a movie that got a lot of Oscar buzz and won a lot of Oscar acclaim. And to have the two of them back in a movie like this is based on a novel, I believe, that I've never read personally. But, it seems to be at least loosely based on, real people, and the guy who was one of the forefathers of weather prediction and stuff like that. There's a lot here to like about this concept. I'll tell you what, I would have liked them to have put this in the theater. I would have liked them to have rolled the dice, seen if this thing could actually pick up an audience. But I do respect the decision. If they think it's just going to end up losing them money to do it, I can respect that. But it would have been nice to see them do it. Question is, guys, what do you think about all this? Have you seen the Aeronauts trailer? Were you looking forward to seeing it? I mean, you still will get to see it, but do you think they should have done a theatrical release? Do you think they've done the wise business thing by not giving it a theatrical release? Let us know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on now to the fifth and final main topic today. Chris, what is the fifth and final main topic today?
Final topic is from Benson Thomas. Hey, John, big fan and watch all the time. I was watching your open mic today, and you got talking about the length of time trailers take up in theaters. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on that, and I'd love to hear Rob's thoughts on it, too. Not mine, I see, Benson. Cool. Thanks.
Well, Benson, now we know how the way you think. Anyway, okay, so you're right. This was, obviously, Benson wrote this yesterday when I did open mic, and I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to go over the stuff on this again, and I do want to hear what Rob and Chris have to say about this. But
thanks.
So here's the thing. Somebody wrote in on open mic yesterday and pointed out that, again, it's, somebody went and they clocked it, and they clocked 28 minutes of trailers. 28 minutes of trailers. They looked at their watch when the actual movie they went to go see, which I think they said was I can't remember, but it actually started, the movie was supposed to start at, I think, 8:30. It actually started at 8:58 when it was supposed to start at 8:30. Now, here's the preamble. The preamble is simply this. I like movie trailers. I think a lot of us like movie trailers. To me, a movie trailer is a part of the movie-going experience, and we like it. But there was also a day, I remember, as a kid, that I would go to the movie theaters at Limeridge Mall in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and they'd play 3 trailers. Now, granted, this was also back in the day when they would play the national anthem before the beginning of a movie, which I never really understood, but it is still. They would play the national anthem, everybody would stand before a movie, and then they would play like 3 trailers, and then the movie would begin. Well, that turned into 4, which then turned into 5, which then turned into 7, which then turned into 74. And now we are basically, we're getting to the age now that we are spending a half hour before a movie starts that we actually get a movie. That a half hour after the advertised showtime that the things actually start. Rob, we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that this industry knows how to condition the audience. They've conditioned us. You know what? 3 trailers? Yeah, that's good. Hey, what's one more? What's one more trailer? Okay, 4 trailers. Then 5. It's like, well, this... Actually, looking at our watch, it's been a while, but then we get used to it. Okay, 5. Then it's 6. And we go, man, this feels like it's kind of long. I almost forget how many times has this happened to you guys? You forget which movie you were there to watch. I guarantee that happens to you. It happens to me too. It's like the trailers are almost done. It's like, what movie am I here to see again? Oh yeah, I'm here to see this. And then it becomes 7. And they condition us slowly, that before you know it, a movie that was supposed to start at 7 is now basically starting at 7:30. One of the things that mitigates this a little bit today is the fact that now most theaters in North America will allow you to have pre-assigned seats. And so we can show up 20 minutes late, and it's okay. So that's there. But still, there's this principle of nearly a half hour of ads for a movie that we paid to go and see. Now, here's the principle that I brought up yesterday, guys, was that, when I turn on free cable television, I mean, we pay for cable, but still, they like the shows that they're broadcasting for free. I get it. If I'm going to watch NFL Countdown, which is free, there's going to be commercials. I accept that. I'm getting a free television broadcast. I pay with my time by watching some commercials. I accept that. When I go to a website, like whether it's the Hollywood Reporter or Coming Soon or Cinema Blend or Flash Film or whatever, I know, hey, I get to look at this website for free. I don't pay a subscription service for it. I get to watch this, look at and read this website for free. I understand and I accept there are going to be a bunch of ads in there. But when I pay for a service, I expect no ads, and at the very, very most, incredibly few ads. Now, on Hulu, I pay for Hulu. I watch almost all of it with no commercials, but there's a few shows where they go, due to streaming rights, you guys have probably heard this message on Hulu. Due to streaming rights, the following presentation will happen with one commercial before and after the presentation. I can live with that because during the entire thing, they don't show commercials. I can live with that. Netflix, no commercials because I pay like $15 a month, $16 a month for Netflix, so I get no commercials. When you go to a movie theater, you're not walking in off the street for free. You either pay for your movie ticket or you pay for your AMC A-List subscription or your Regal Unlimited subscription. For whatever it is, you're not walking in off the street for free, because if you were, I could totally understand. Part of watching this free movie means I have to sit through a bunch of ads. I accept that. That's a part of the cultural norm. But can you imagine, let me ask you guys this, for those of you thinking this is no big deal, can you imagine that you're watching Netflix, okay? And you pay for Netflix, and you go ahead and you hit start. You want to watch the latest episode of Dark Crystal, yes. Age of Resistance. Great. And as soon as you hit play, 25 minutes of ads play for upcoming Netflix presentations, which maybe they should do because Netflix is terrible at letting us know what they have coming. But still, you pay $16 a month for Netflix. You hit play, the show starts. What if you paid $16 for your Netflix, you sit down, great, I'm ready to watch Age of Resistance, Dark Crystal, play, and you got to spend the first 25 minutes watching ads on a service you paid for. None of us would accept that.
No.
None of us would be okay with that.
I'd flip my coffee table. I'd go full Italian and just be like, no!
Full Italian. The subscription service on Netflix would drop by 50% overnight if that were to happen. Because Netflix hasn't conditioned us. The movie theater industry has been slowly and surely conditioning us to just accept 4 trailers, then accept 5, then accept 6, then accept 7, and now we're 8, 9, 10 trailers in now. And it's going to keep getting worse. It's going to keep getting worse. And we just accept it. This is unacceptable. I paid to be here. Now, some people will raise the issue and make an argument here, guys, that, movie theaters make money from trailers, and if there wasn't for that money they're getting, our ticket prices would be higher. I accept that, but I did a little bit of research on that a few years ago when I was still at AMC. I did a little bit of research. Do you know how much the movie theaters would have to increase your ticket price by if they were to eliminate showing trailers? $2 per ticket? $3 per ticket? At the time, now granted this was 5 years ago, at the time, 16 cents a ticket.
What?
16 cents a ticket. is if you divide, and I did the study, I got the numbers from AMC. If you got the total number of tickets sold, the amount of revenue generated by the trailers being shown, divided by the number of tickets, when you break it all down, it would be an extra 16 cents a ticket. So it's not like this is a night and day difference for the movie theater industry and all this kind of stuff as well. So saying, well, our ticket prices will skyrocket. Actually, that's not true. It does get them a little bit of extra money, but I just think this is an unacceptable thing. And that seems to be the theme of today's show. We're being conditioned by the industry to accept things we shouldn't accept. Multiple releases of film in the same release window. You didn't get the full movie the first time, got to come back 4 weeks later, see it again. And now something like this, how many previews they show? And I've been saying for a long time that I believe the main reason that we see slight declines year over year about the number of people going to the theaters is not that we don't have good movies, is that we don't it's the movie going experience. And the theaters have been doing a good job giving us better projectors, better seating, all that kind of stuff. But there's still things like ticket prices that they don't want to address. Little things like 25 minutes to 30 minutes of ads before a movie starts that they don't want to address. And again, this is mitigated a little bit by the fact that we have that, but I shouldn't have to plan to show up 20 minutes late for my movie. You advertise an 8 o'clock showtime. I should be able to get there at 8 o'clock and watch my movie. So anyway, I think this is actually a big deal. I do. And I think anybody who doesn't think this is a big deal is because we have all, just like for a long time I didn't think it was a big deal, it's because we have just been conditioned to believe it's not a big deal, when really it's just been getting, what's that analogy people often use? If you drop a crab or a lobster in boiling water, it instantly freaks out. You drop a lobster in cool water that eventually warms up, turn up the heat, and then it just doesn't even notice it. And before it knows it, it's dead and it's cooked. Well, you folks, we're cooked. We've been cooked. And I really think the theaters need to take a look at this. And look, I'm not saying no trailers. I like trailers. But make it 10 minutes of trailers. Maybe 12, but start bringing it down, but it's just been going up. Anyway, Rob. So anyway, that's the big spiel I gave. Tell me why I'm ludicrous. Tell me why I'm overthinking this at this point.
No, I don't think you are, but here's how I feel about it. Trailers are part of the show, and they should be thought of as part of the show, and I think they should be curated. So yesterday, as an example, I went and saw the director's cut of Midsummer. Now, the ArcLight is usually pretty good about this. The ArcLight, my beloved ArcLight, it's a premium theater. You pay a little bit more money, and they usually show 3 trailers.
Yeah, I like that.
In front of movies. Mm-hmm. 3 trailers are good. I think 3 trailers is sometimes I want to get a 4th trailer, so give me a 4th trailer. But what I like is curated trailers. So if I go see Midsummer, show me some thematically connected trailers. It gets me excited about the fact that, I'm here to see a horror film. Mm-hmm. Show me upcoming horror movies. Yesterday, hey, I got the new trailer, the latest trailer for It. Then I saw a trailer for a Linda Ronstadt documentary. And I'm like, I like Linda Ronstadt. I grew up with her. But it was kind of harsh in my mellow. I was on my horror kick. I'm like, yeah, dude. And then I see a Linda Ronstadt trailer. Trailers should be considered part of the show. And what they do is they amp up your excitement. I think, you're the horror genre. I'm here to experience that. And boom, I get to see what's coming up next. And then 3 trailers is only 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes total. It's gotten you amped up. It's gotten it's like sitting in a roller coaster before it, you're going up the slope before you dive into the fast part of the roller coaster track, which is what the movie is. And I think it should be considered part of the show. And if you go to the Alamo Drafthouse or you go to some other theaters, they've thought about this. They're showing you thematically related trailers. And even if you've seen the trailers online, and let's face it, we've all seen the trailers online before, and you put them together and it becomes like a sauce for the main course. It's like I happen to like filet mignon, and I like to get a nice peppercorn sauce. That's what the trailers are to me, and I can't stand watching this litany of, like you said, 20 minutes of trailers. That is too much. It gets me antsy. I'm not into it. I want enough. It's like I call it foreplay. Give me some foreplay. That's what I want. Get me hot before I get to see the main event. And that's how trailers should be used.
Before the money shot that is your main feature.
Yeah, there we go. Chris, look, is this really nothing to be worried about, or is this something that maybe we've just been conditioned to accept and we shouldn't?
I mean, I feel the length is a little unacceptable at this point. But I do love that moment when you're in a movie theater and you're all sitting there drinking your Cokes or whatever, and you're sitting there and then you do the, oh my God, yes, I would watch that. You'd watch that. We're going to go see that one. Oh my God, that movie looks so stupid.
And
We're
people
not gonna
clap
see
at
that now.
trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I like that sense of community that happens in that moment. What I don't like are the straight up commercials. You know, I don't want to buy a town car when I'm in the movies. I'm already sitting in my seat. I don't want to go back to the concession stand. I don't need to know you have Coke products because, oh my God, it's everywhere. I don't enjoy seeing commercials, like straight up commercials while I'm there. That's what I take bigger issue with. Or seeing like Maria Menounos pop in to be like, hey, make sure you're watching E! This week for all your entertainment news. Get out of here, Maria. I don't care. I don't want you right now. I want my actual entertainment. That kind of stuff irks me more than the actual trailers. Having like 5 in there, I think that's fine. Anything upwards of that, then it becomes excessive.
Yeah, I think most of us agree. The trailer is part of the movie-going experience to a degree. To a degree. Once you start exceeding 8, 9, 10 trailers, it's just getting too much. Anyway, guys, what do you think about this? Is this something that, yeah, you know what, don't even think about it anymore? Or, yeah, this is an annoyance. What do you think about it? Jump down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, we're going to take live questions now in just a second. But before we do, we're going to take just a little bit of a break here. We're going to refill our drinks, stretch our legs for a second. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to take a short break. We will be right back in just about 3.5 minutes. Hang tight, and we'll be right back with your live questions. We'll see you in just a moment. right, and we are back. Thank you guys for your patience as we took a minute there just to rest up the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill the drinks. And now let's get on to the questions that you guys have been sending in. Let's jump over to it right now. And we're going to start things off with Tyler Van, who writes, thoughts on the band Good Charlotte. Never heard of them. Have either of you guys heard of these guys?
Yeah.
Who are they?
I'm trying to think of their songs. I listened to them in high school. Yeah, there's like twin boys. One of them married Nicole Richie.
Really?
One of them, I think, is dating Cameron Diaz.
Okay.
I can't.
Well, they married, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they got married. I can't remember their songs though. But yeah, I had some of their albums.
I'm not familiar with them, so there's that. City of Swift writes, just wanted to say thank you, folks. Thanks. I just wanted to say you folks have been great. Thank you so much, Cities. I appreciate it. It's always nice when someone wants to write in just to say something nice. Matthew Leach, who sends in a really big super chat. Thank you, Matthew, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Who writes in, hope everyone's had a great Memorial Day weekend. Word is that Birds of Prey is releasing a teaser before It 2 in theaters, but only it's already leaked online in HD pics and a filtered HD video from the Ukraine. Your thoughts? Yeah, I saw this. Somebody said, I didn't know what it was. And I looked it up. It's like some hand cam in a theater getting a trailer of Birds of Prey. There really wasn't anything to it. I hope whatever they're releasing next is better than what I saw. Now, granted, I didn't understand a word of it because it was like Russian, but so I didn't know a single thing they were saying. Maybe there's something really profound in the narrative of it, but all I can say is I hope whatever the trailer is that they release is better than what I saw in that Ukraine thing. So I'm hoping that Ukraine thing was just some little thing that's going to be attached to something else. I don't know, Rob, did you see this thing?
No, I did not. But, I would expect, I can't wait to go see it this weekend. I got my tickets. So I'd love to see a Birds of Prey trailer. I haven't seen it yet.
Have you seen this thing, Chris?
No, because Ukrainian shaky cam footage doesn't get me hot. Like, I'm not into that.
All right.
Depends what the footage is of, right?
It depends if it's you, McGregor. All right. The good question, Matthew. We'll see. Okay. Tyler Van writes, I also agree with you, John, that Eyes Wide Shut is underappreciated, and so is Tom Cruise's performance in that movie. Hope you all have a good day. Seriously, I like that movie, and it ain't just because it's loaded with the filthy, and it is. It's loaded with filthy, but it's when you get past that, I think it's a really quite a good movie, and a lot of people never talk about it. It doesn't come up unless it's a snicker kind of thing, like Eyes Wide Shut. But I actually think it's pretty good. Did you ever see it, Chris?
No, I was too little. My parents wouldn't let me.
Rob?
It's Stanley Kubrick. It's his final film. I've watched it countless times, and finally we have for the longest time in America, we couldn't see the unaltered version of it. Now we can.
I was half expecting you to say your parents wouldn't let you watch it either, but
oh no.
Rob and I have the same parents.
My parents encourage me,
Yeah, I actually think it's a really good movie. You guys should check it out if you get a chance. You should check it out.
I should see it now that I'm an adult human being.
Yes, I think Logan would like it too.
Just remember Fidelio. You'll see.
Orange Hand, don't give anything away. Orange Hand writes, CGI or a bodybuilder size actress for She-Hulk. Under normal circumstances, CGI. I don't want to go back to the Lou Ferrigno days. Don't get me wrong. I cherish the old Lou Ferrigno stuff because that's all you could have done at the time. But I don't want to see that. But you could make the argument if they take the approach, and it doesn't matter what they do in the comics, all that matters is what they do in the show. If they take the approach that she's always in She-Hulk form, then you may have to go just get a female version of the dude who plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones to do it, but then you got to find an actress who can actually act and looks like that. I think they're going to go CGI, and I'm okay with that. It isn't like a 20-episode season that's going to have 5 seasons. It's a 6-part event. I think they're going to go CGI. It's probably the wisest way. Rob, what do you think they're going to do?
I think probably so. That I would imagine they're probably going to go CGI. I mean, look, I like the idea of Jennifer Garner. I think she'd make a great She-Hulk.
Love the idea of Jennifer Garner. What about you, Chris?
I think they'll go CGI unless they go courtroom procedural. Then I think it's going to be practical and prosthetics.
Well, and then if they go, do they go that she's always in Hulk form?
Yep.
Which you've seen a lot of thing, or do they do the Bruce Hulk thing where she transitions back and forth between forms? I mean, it does. Again, it doesn't really matter what they do in the comics. It matters what they do in the show. It'll be interesting to see what they do and how much money they're going to put behind this. All right. Nosferatu writes, I just don't like the idea that anytime there's a dinner invitation, there's this annoying little chore that goes along with it.
Where's that from?
That's probably a quote from a movie, and it's going right over my head. So, and either you guys know it?
No.
I'm gonna look
All right. If you guys in the chat board know what Nosferatu's talking about, leave your thoughts in there. All right. Luke 123 writes, Yoda, Emperor, Obi-Wan, Luke, and Anakin or Vader, your choice. At the height of their power, fight in a battle royale. Who wins and in what order? Well, according to, I mean, it all depends if you go by extended universe legend stuff, by whatever. I'm going to think at the height of their power, Luke wins that fight. I think at the height of their power, Luke wins that fight. Because the Emperor says to Yoda that in talking about Vader, he will become more powerful than either of us. And then Luke beat him down. And then Luke got even, in the legend stuff, Luke becomes even more powerful and becomes, in some legend things, the most powerful Jedi of all time. So I'm going to guess Luke. What about you, Rob?
I got to go Yoda, man.
Hard to bet against the little green guy.
I'm going Yoda.
Yeah. Yoda.
Yoda? All right.
And that last quote was from Seinfeld.
Oh, that was from Seinfeld?
Yes. That's a George Costanza line, apparently.
I don't even recognize it, and I love my George Costanza
When people
lines.
send us quotes, they should put them in quotation marks so we know that.
Yes, that's a good. So we know you're
quotes
specific. You're talking about it. Yeah. Matsiv Jada writes, "Going against the grain gets clicks. Hashtag festival crowd." First of all, I reject that. I sorry, brother Matsiv, but I reject that. Like, what I am so sick and tired of hearing, it's just another way of making excuses for somebody else not liking what you like. Like, I'm so sick of this weak thing of, oh, this critic didn't like it. They're just trying to be contrarian. Bull. I mean, every once in a while you get an Armand White, which, you can't get around that one. But that's a very, very small thing. The fact of the matter is, some people watched it and they just didn't like it. Some people watched my beloved original Star Wars trilogy and they don't like it. They're not just trying to be contrarian, they just didn't like it. That's the subjectivity of film. So, no, I don't buy this whole thing of they're just being contrarian. I think that's just an excuse we make to rationalize why somebody didn't like something that we want them to like. And that's what we do as film fans. You're guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. We all do it. But it's one of the things that we as film fans need to try to stop doing. Because I know we're all guilty of it, but we got to stop doing that. All right. Orange Hand writes, do you think Power Rangers helped... I always forget how to pronounce Darce's first name. I'm just going to say Dacre, Montgomery, or Dacre. You're right. You're right. That is Dacre. It's Dacre. That is the proper pronunciation. That's right. Montgomery, Naomi Scott, Ludi Lin get their subsequent roles: Stranger Things, Aladdin, Mortal Kombat. Honestly, no. I don't look. If Power Rangers had been a big financial success and a big critical success, then yeah, you can point to it and say, hey, it probably helped these actors move forward and get these other things. But honestly, even though I liked Power Rangers, I don't think it helped their cause. I don't think it hurt their cause either. But no, I don't think it necessarily helped their causes. I think that was probably just more on their own merits. I don't know. Rob, do you think Power Rangers might have helped them get the stuff they do?
Look, I think any actor that gets a role, it helps them in some way, shape, or form. It helps them hone their craft. But I don't necessarily think people looked at Power Rangers and said, we got to get that guy or we got to get that girl. But I do think, look, any work helps you hone your craft. It makes you a better person. So when you go into an audition, I mean, a lot of people probably didn't even know you were in Power Rangers. You get to come in, you get to blow away a casting director or the director himself or herself. It depends. But I don't necessarily think one thing leads to another.
What do you think, Chris?
I agree with that. There's a thing with casting where sometimes you book the room, not the role. And so there is a buildup with being seen by casting directors, being seen by directors, where you're booking that room, you're making those people want to work with you, just maybe not on this project, but they know they want to work with you down the road. And for Dacre, no, his bonkers-ass audition for Stranger Things is what got him that role. Have you seen that self-tape? It is insane.
Yeah.
What a lunatic.
All right, let's move on here. Strictly Mediocre writes, A Monster Calls flew under the radar for so many people. Yeah, it did, really did. I think it's a shame because I found the film to be really great. The graveyard scene is so explosively emotional, I couldn't help but shed a tear. No. Listen, that is a movie that will... it'll pull an Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on you, where it will thrust its fist into your chest and pull your heart out. I mean, it is powerful. It is beautiful. I think it is a movie that, and we've said this about a number of films, but he didn't know how to market it. And this is one of those films, guys, that I don't blame them, because I've seen the film and I appreciate the film, and I don't know how you market this film.
Right.
And in that way that it's effective and will draw out a big audience without giving too much away. It's just one of the things that it's a movie that can't really be summed up in 2 minutes. I don't know, Chris. Did they blow the marketing? Was it just too childish? Like, what do you think about it?
How you could market it, honestly, because I remember seeing trailers and going, that looks interesting, and then not watching it till I was on a plane, and then making my seatmate very uncomfortable by openly sobbing next to them, being like, I don't know. I don't know if anyone even dropped the ball. It's just hard to package that for the right audience.
Rob?
You know, John, over or under 50%, Robert Meyer Burnett owns a Monster Calls on Blu-ray.
Oh, I'm going to take the over on that.
That would be 100%. I love this movie so much, and I didn't go see it in a theater. I didn't go see it in a theater because I'm like, do I need to see it in a theater? And my God, what a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's one of those movies like The Shawshank Redemption for me. Nobody went and saw it. I mean, it didn't do well theatrically, and it's become, this beloved, maybe not quite at the level of Shawshank Redemption. It is a classic film. You cannot be not moved by that film. And I think that I don't know how to market it either. I just tell people, just watch this. It's great.
Yeah, and people are like, why is Jay Bayona get this? Because of this. You want to know what Jay Bayona can do.
And the impossible, too. I mean, this guy is I don't think Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom showed what he could do. I understand why he got the job. But my God, he's a world-class filmmaker.
Yeah, he really is. All right, let's move on here. Echo Base Network writes, thoughts on the new Dave Chappelle Netflix show and the Rotten Tomatoes critic score being 0. I personally liked it, even though I did not agree with everything he said. I was not offended at all. I haven't seen it yet. I'm dying to see it because I love Dave Chappelle's comedy. So I haven't seen myself. So having not seen it, I can have no commentary on whatever the Rotten Tomato score is. For all I know, it's completely deserved. Maybe it's not, but I haven't seen it yet. All I know is that I'm very excited to watch it. Rob, you seem to have a little bit of a reaction. Did you see it?
I loved it. And I think, again, he presupposes that his audience is intelligent. And yes, it's one of the most jaw-droppingly offensive things that I've ever seen, but it's also really smart. And if you just listen to what he's saying, like off the cuff, and be like, oh my God, you're not getting what he's trying to say. And I think that it was a fearless, masterful bit of work. And it's going to be looked at for a long time to come. It was certainly a shot in the arm that I think we've all needed, because boy, does it destroy politically correct woke culture. But not with the bludgeon. There's, I think, a scalpel, because it was very, very well conceived and executed. But a lot of people are like, rah, they can't get past the initial shock of what he's saying.
Have you had a chance to see it, Chris?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'm just dying to see it.
It's called Sticks and Stones.
Yeah.
If you're offended by what he's saying and you're like, oh my God, you didn't get it. He tells you right up front. That's what it's called. Words shouldn't hurt you.
All right. Let's move on here. Nathan Oswald writes, birthday today, Salma Hayek, 53, who's going to be in The Eternals, by the way. Keanu Reeves, 55. Mark Harmon, 68. Terry Bradshaw, 71. Terry Bradshaw, by the way, NFL season is here. That dude's still really sharp. I love Terry Bradshaw. That's a lot of birthdays on the one day. Yeah. Stuff like that. Reeves, 55. It finally started to happen. Keanu Reeves finally doesn't look like he's 32 anymore. It took a long time.
It did.
Took several decades. Now he looks 40.
That Dorian Gray portrait just went missing, I guess. And
yeah.
Now it's kicking
now
in.
He looks 40, which is still pretty good, but he finally doesn't look 32 anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, it looks great.
Strictly Mediocre writes, one of two. I recently saw The Blair Witch Project and was blown away by the actors' performances, so I decided to check out their IMDb pages and was shocked to see that they didn't get much work after that. It's unfortunate to see that, since a lot of what they did in that movie was supposedly improvised. Well, I mean, look, this is one of the harsh realities that anybody wanting to come to Hollywood and get a career and all that kind of stuff in it is this. This is a insanely competitive field, and it's not always about, are you good? You got to be good, and you got to be lucky. And I remember I had a friend from Canada who moved down here to the States to pursue becoming an actress. And she had a lot of success in Canada, yeah, on a certain level, was very successful in Canada, came down here. She's super gifted, super talented, grinded away at it for 7 years and never got a single break. And eventually, and she would have been awesome. She was great. And so eventually she had to pull up the tent and move back home. I have other friends like that here too. Chris, you probably better than Rob or I here appreciate just how competitive and hard it is. And it's not just about being good. You got to be good to give yourself a shot, but then you also got to just be purely lucky because it's 1 in 10,000. But it's just one of those things that, a lot of people say, why didn't that person get more work? Well, it's the nature of it here.
Yeah.
I know how would you respond to that?
I mean, it's artistry meets business meets luck. And there's so many factors that go into things. I've had things where it comes down to me and one other girl, and I've been told point blank, like it was something about my physicality that I didn't get it, where I was like not white enough. I was too ethnic looking. I, have too high of a voice, like little things that you can't really control. Other times I've been on set and I've gotten my part taken away from me because, this other guy knows the director and nannies his kids. So all of my lines are his now. There's weird little things like that that'll happen. That was fun. That was a last week tonight gig. Oh, heartbreaking. And Logan and I always joke about how we are the king and queen of the cutting room floor because we have booked so many projects that have never seen the light of day or that we're removed from, which we get paid on the day. That's nice. We're still working actors. But it makes it a little tricky the next time you're up for something going, well, I've done these 5 movies. No, you can't see them. I'm not in them, but I was there. Most of my friends who moved out here to be actors too have all turned in. They're all done doing it. And some who had quite a bit of success when they first got here. Some people just, it's a constant hustle. And it's constant rejection. And if you don't have a thick skin, why would you stick around and do a job where people are constantly finding minute little reasons not to like you and not even dislike you? It's show business, not show friends, as the magnificent man over here tells us. But, it can be rough. It can be really, really rough.
And here's another example. Like there have been times in my career that I've had to hire like hosts and on-camera personalities. And I would get people, here's a great recent example. I would get people in who are amazing, fantastic. But there was 1 or 2 other people who came in that were just maybe 0.1%, a little bit more amazing, fantastic. Matter of fact, I think it was for A24, had this little horror film out. This just happened a couple months ago. And they asked me to come down and moderate the Q&A for their premiere. So I go down and do it. And who's the lead actress in it? It's a girl that I came this close to hiring once. This close. It was down between her and this other person. This was for my Lionsgate show that I was producing. It was down between her and this one other girl. She was so good. And I ended up giving it to the other girl. And she was great. But I remember we were sitting at the front of the stage talking about this horror movie she was just in. And we hadn't talked before the thing. And I turned to her, I said, this is during the Q&A. I said, now, I don't know if you remember this. Oh, she goes, oh, I remember. I know who you are, and I remember. And we've just told this whole story. And it's just, but that's part of it too. Everything that Chris said, on top of the fact that, in this, it's so competitive that you can be amazing, but there's somebody else who might have just been a little bit more amazing for it. And you can constantly be in second and never get a job, even though it's an incredibly competitive thing. And it's unbelievable, this stuff. All right, let's take one more, and then we got to let these guys go because they have things they need to do with their day to day. All right, Dylan Marcy writes, often at theaters, strangers sit next to me, even in an otherwise empty row. Do you think fans should leave a seat or two between each other if plenty are open? Dylan, you have brought up a question that I have debated with myself many times sitting in a movie theater. I will say this. If it is clear, this is my philosophy, guys, that a movie is going to be half empty, then you should not go up and nuzzle next to somebody else. It's like, Rob, Chris, you have no idea about this, but Rob, when we go into the men's bathroom, there's a line of urinals. There's 8 urinals,
next to each other.
And there's one guy there. You don't go up to the next guy. It's an unwritten rule.
That's right.
But
everyone knows that. That's just creepy.
If you're going into Hobbs and Shaw on opening weekend, if you're going into Joker on opening weekend, and you're early, then it doesn't, and there's lots of empty seats, well, then that doesn't matter because every seat's going to be full anyway. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to sit in that spot, and it just so happens that another person's in the chair beside it, I'm going to go sit in that spot because if I don't, somebody else will because the theater's going to be full anyway. Again, it's not as much of an issue today because now we are pre-assigned seats. Mm-hmm. So that's different. But yeah, that's my Rob, what's your philosophy on that?
100%. You know, it's just polite. It's like if you're in a half-empty theater. Look, I understand. Usually I try and get the most premium center seat that's directly right in front of the screen, perfectly. I get it. So I'm in an area where I usually sit in places that's going to have a high concentration of people sitting, even if it's a pretty open theater, because everybody wants to sit in the center and they want to have the viewing range. But even I will always leave an empty seat between people. I think it's just polite. You know, it's just a polite thing to do. And if there's more people that come in, you scooch down.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, don't sit by me if there's other seats like that. That's creepy. Nothing made me more uncomfortable in college when I'd take myself out on little dates and I'd go see a movie by myself and be an empty theater because it's like 11:30 in the morning and someone would plop down right next to me. In a completely empty space. Nothing will make me grab my pepper spray faster. Yes. Oh.
In the middle of the movie. Hey, what's your phone number?
Right in the middle of the movie. All right, guys, listen. That's all the time that we have for Rob and Chris today. We're going to keep going on answering questions. We got another half hour so we can go on and answer these questions. But that does wrap up the day here for Rob, because Rob and Chris both got things they need to go do. Rob, first of all, thank you. The master, what was it? Fun
and wonder.
The master of fun and wonder.
I used to be the sanctimoniously notorious Rob Burnett. Now I'm going to be Rob Burnett, the master of fun and wonder.
You need business cards.
And you need a shirt. Well, Rob, where can they find you doing that?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, which is always full of fun and wonder, The Burnett Work, or its adjacent website, theburnettwork.net.
And of course, also joining us here is, she doesn't want to be picked up in a movie theater, Chris Carr. Chris, where can people find you, despite the fact that your lower third today said Aaron Cummings?
That's okay. I got to be Aaron. I got to be a hot blonde. What a nice change. So you can find me at actor Chris Carr on Twitter or Instagram. You can also find me over on YouTube for Nerdwire. We are not doing a live stream today because of the holiday, so y'all go out there and enjoy barbecuing.
And of course, guys, make sure you check them out on all their various places and go and support them, even when they're not here on the John Campea Show. Guys, thanks so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you both again tomorrow. All right. Let's move on now here, and we're going to keep going with the questions. You guys have sent in a whole bunch more, so let's keep things rolling here. Quinn Fowley writes, as funny as I think it was, I'm surprised in hindsight that Mike Oxmall gag made it into Hobbs and Shaw despite its PG-13 rating. I'll be honest with you, Quinn, I can't remember what that is. I've seen the film twice, and I can't remember what that is. I don't remember if that was Ryan Reynolds' character or not, if it was somebody else, so I can't remember the specific thing. By the way, even if I did remember, I probably shouldn't talk about it because it might be considered a spoiler for some people. All right. Then Quinn's second part is, this makes me curious as to how the MPAA works, and more specifically, how close a film can get to making blatant sexual references before it becomes an R-rated film. Again, there's a mystery to it, Quinn. You can use innuendo. You can use a lot of innuendo. If you're not saying things outright and blatant, there's a lot you can get away with. Like when it comes to that, the MPAA is a lot with that stuff is kind of like the way it approaches violence. You can do a lot of violence in a PG-13 movie if you don't show a lot of blood. You can do a lot of things in a PG-13, and the MPAA quite often will go with, there's a lot of violence, no blood, okay, no problem, and they'll give you PG-13. Or you can have massive carnage, but if the carnage is being done against robots or aliens, no problem. Like Transformers, Optimus Prime would take out his righteous sword and decapitate other Transformers, no problem, because it's robots. With sexual stuff, if it's innuendo and things like that, if it's not being too explicit, there's a lot they'll let you get away with. So I'm not tremendously surprised by that, to be honest with you. It's more of an art than a science, I find, Quinn. Strictly Mediocre. Oh, we already got Strictly Mediocres. Let's see here. Tyler Van writes, worst Clint Eastwood directed movie. Ugh. I don't know. I might want to say J. Edgar. Let me just bring up here. Hold on a second. Because every one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is brilliant. J. Edgar wasn't fantastic. Although I think it's better than some people make it out to be. Let's see. The 1517 to Paris was not so good. I really liked Sully. I liked American Sniper. I didn't think Jersey Boys was all that great. J. Edgar. Invictus was good. Gran Torino was good. I thought Changeling was good. Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags Over Fathers, $1 Million Baby, Mystic River, Bloodwork, Space Cowboys. I love Space Cowboys, actually. Yeah, so You know, I changed it. I'm going to go to 1517 to Paris. That's the one I'm going to go with. Quinn Fowley sends in us a large super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel on that level, Quinn. Also, not sure if you saw, but Weird Al's Strings Attached tour just wrapped. Did you get a chance to see one of his concerts? If so, what did you think? If not, related question, when was the first time you saw Weird Al live? I did not get a chance to go and see this tour. Ann and I had tickets, and then we realized we were going to be out of town. Same thing that happened with our Hugh Jackman show thing. We had tickets twice and both realized we couldn't go to either of them. But we did go see Weird Al like 2 or 3 years ago here in LA, actually at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. We saw him there. It was a fabulous concert. I've seen Weird Al Yankovic in concert 3 times. And every time has been absolutely spectacular, wildly entertaining. The first time I ever saw Weird Al was like 15 years ago, maybe getting close to 20 years ago. And it was I was living in Saskatchewan. I was living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and he played at the big hockey arena there. And that was the first time I saw him in concert. And I was blown away. And I've said this before, but it's true. I knew I was in for something special. Because when his band came out, it wasn't these hot guys with long rocker hair and good looking dudes. It was these like in their mid 50s, out of shape, overweight musician dudes. And they came out on stage and I instantly knew this is going to be a hell of a concert. Because clearly all Weird Al Yankovic worries about is that he's getting the best musicians. He doesn't care what they look like. He doesn't care what age they are. He only cares about if they're awesome musicians. And sure enough, when the concert started, it was some of the best musicianship I'd ever seen in a live show. Like, these dudes were awesome. And it was a fun, entertaining show. So no, I didn't get to see the latest tour, even though we had tickets, couldn't go, but we saw him just a couple of years ago and I've seen him a few times and I love Weird Al. He's the only celebrity I'm ever afraid to approach. I've seen him like at 7 different things. He and I have been at the same thing like 7 times. And every time I'm too scared to go up and talk to him. I've gone up and talked to Harrison Ford, but I'm too scared to go talk to Weird Al Yankovic. I have no idea why, but I love Weird Al. All right, Bearded One writes, I'm drunk, can't wait for a Joker. And I'm sure one's not necessarily connected to the other, but you and me both, buddy. I cannot wait for Joker. Aviator 986 writes, can you believe Wizard of Oz is 80 years old today? Yeah, look, there's a lot of movies when you mention the age of the movie, you go, oh my God, that thing's 10 years old and you can't believe it. Wizard of Oz, I can believe. Because Wizard of Oz, first of all, is it really 80? Is it 80? But I could buy it. Because, 1939 turns 80 years old. I can buy it because it's a movie that was so long before my time, like before I ever existed. So, I mean, you could say it's 300 years old and I'd probably believe it at that point. But what a great classic. Still a movie I'll watch almost every year. I'll watch it with my family. Harry Wiffle writes, have you heard the new Tool album? It's life-changing. Nope. I didn't even have any idea that they had a new album coming out, to be honest with you. Infinity War for Life writes, who would win Best Director from all comic films? Christopher Nolan. Really Tired 64 writes, if they are starting an Oscar campaign for Joker, is it wise to release it so early? That strategy backfired on A Star Is Born last year. No, that strategy didn't backfire on A Star Is Born last year. A Star Is Born wasn't the best film of the year. I mean, it's all subjective, of course, but for my opinion, it's not. That did. I mean, Star Is Born. Did Star Is Born not get a Best Picture nomination? Hold on a second. Star Is Born. I believe it got nominated for Best Picture. I could be wrong about that, though. Let me just double check that. Where's the awards thing here? Okay, A Star Is Born was. It was nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Screenplay, Best Performance by a Supporting Actor, Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role, and it was nominated for Best Picture of the Year. So, I mean, if you're saying it backfired because it didn't win, I would argue it didn't win because it wasn't the Best Picture of the Year. There were 3 or 4 movies that were better than it. So, no, releasing in October, you're in the beginning of Oscar season. When you release in October, it's in the early stages, granted, but it's still kind of October can be considered Oscar season at this point. So yeah, and again, you can only say it backfired really tired as if like, well, A Star is Born would have won Best Picture. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have even come in second. So I think that's the main reason. So I don't think it backfired on it at all. Listen, how can you say it backfired when it got 8 Academy Award nominations, including cinematography, screenplay, supporting actress, leading actor, leading actress, Best Picture of the Year, sound mixing, music. I mean, clearly their marketing, their Oscar campaign worked. It got them a hell of a lot of Oscar attention and a lot of nominations. But it didn't win because it didn't deserve to win. I mean, that's a subjective opinion, but that is my opinion on that. All right, Really Tired 64 follows up with, what if Phoenix won? That would be 2 Oscar wins for the same character. What does that say about the Joker himself? Comic book greatest of all time, at least in film? Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I did bring that up a little bit earlier, right? It's like if Joaquin Phoenix does win, and that's a huge if. That's a huge if. But if he does, that'll be twice that a portrayal of a comic book character won Best Actor at the Oscars, or would win an acting Oscar, and they would both be for the same comic book character. Now, I don't know that says that means the character is the greatest, because, I mean, Heath Ledger's Joker is a very different Joker than the one we're getting from Joaquin Phoenix. So they're completely different interpretations of the Joker. So I don't think that necessarily points to that automatically means that the Joker is the best character. No, that means that there were 2 filmmakers who decided to handle their character in such a way that it did it. I think that's more coincidental than anything else. I mean, it's a fun piece of trivia, but I think it's more coincidental than anything else. All right. Willow Yang writes, I also thought the Joker movie would have a slightly higher critical rating. However, I'm still so stoked to see Joaquin Phoenix's performance. To me, it is still, if not then one of the top 2 most anticipated films for me for the rest of the year. Look, I'm not expecting 100%. And again, I know there are going to be people that misquote me from earlier, but let me say it again. I am not saying that everybody who watches the movie should like it. I haven't seen the movie myself. How can I say that? I have no issue and no problem with a critic watching the movie and saying, this didn't work for me, and here's why. I have no problem with that. The only thing I stated was a very specific thing that I can't get on board with, which is the notion of, well, yeah, this movie's great and all, but if you took this, and this away, it's not that great. But those are parts of the movie. Those are important things in the movie. That's like saying, yeah, The Godfather's good, but if you take out Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, you're not left with a lot. But Al Pacino and Marlon Brando are a part of it. So what's the point of talking about if you take this and this out? They're there. That's part of the movie. That's an important part of the movie. Judge it on that basis. That's the thing I have an issue with. It's cool if you're talking about it in terms of a trailer, but when you're talking about the movie itself, that's the thing I take issue with. I have no problem with any other critic who watches it and doesn't like it. That's fine. That's movies. That's the subjectivity of movies. I have no issue with that. I just take a little umbrage with the whole idea of I'm going to portray it as negative because if you take certain elements out, then you're not left with enough. But they are in it. So anyway, that's just me. We'll have to say, I cannot wait to watch this movie. Timbula, the Spider Monkey writes, I see people are sending their top movie lists. Here's my top 5. Number 1, Seven Samurai. That's a great one. Number 2, Lawrence of Arabia. That's in my top 10. Number 3, King Kong 1933. Number 4, Strangelove. Number 5, Akira. Solid list. Very different list. Solid list. I love it when you guys actually send in your top 5 list because it really, again, paints the picture about how widely diverse we as film fans are. Everybody's top 5 looks completely different. I don't think any of the top 5 you just listed, Timbula, were in any of the other people's top 5s who sent in their own personal top 5s. And I think that's a great, and again, solid movie after solid movie after solid movie. Love it. Love it. Solid list there, Timbula. All right. Brian Rogers writes, finish Gotham. People just forget that villains cause harm on them and... Finish Gotham. People just forget that villains cause harm on them and then move on. Cops stop chasing villains once they escape the room, and no one ever dies. Look, Gotham to me, I never did watch the final season. I finally tapped out on it. At its best, Gotham was a hit and miss show. There were really good episodes and sometimes some good stretches of episodes and then some really bad stuff. Here is my bottom line for Gotham. When Gotham was about what it was supposed to be about, which is Jim Gordon trying to hold a city falling apart together. When the show was about that, for me, it worked. Him and the crime bosses. When the show focused on those elements, to me, the show hummed, and it was great. When the showrunners, however, gave in to the temptation of making it a Batman show, look, everybody, this kid Bruce Wayne, he becomes Batman. Yeah, we know. When the show, which it often did, moved focus to, look, everybody, it's the Joker. Look, everybody, that person, that's Scarecrow. Look at when it was trying to be a Batman show. For me, that's when it lost its way, and that's when it didn't click and it didn't work. And then when they go back to focusing on Jim Gordon and crime and all that kind of stuff, even with the odd, references to classic Batman lore, it worked and it would fire on all cylinders, and I found it engaging. But all the time, they got caught up in the temptation of, well, everybody loves Batman, so let's focus on the Batman elements of the show. Look, let's put a mask on the kid. Look, everybody, if you didn't know, this is an allusion to the fact that he becomes Batman. Yeah, we know. And I eventually just got sick of it. And I tapped on it, so I never even watched the final season myself. Anyway, K Major writes, one of two. Hey, John, what else do people want? We had Vader for 6 movies, 1 through 6. His arc is ended. Hell, the same can be said for Maul and Kenobi, technically. To shoehorn him in has no logical reason narratively or practically, especially if Kenobi takes place solely on Tatooine. Why would Vader be around? Oh, I'm with you, K Major. I am, which is part of the reason why I will often say filmmakers, for the most part, should listen to themselves and not to us. Put Darth Maul in the Kenobi movie. That makes no sense. Who cares? We love Darth Maul. Put him in. But it'll hurt the show because it makes no logical sense for Darth Maul. We've seen Darth Maul. We've seen Darth Maul a ton in the movies, in the cartoon shows. Hell, he even came back in Solo. We don't need Darth Maul. Oh, but we love Darth Maul. Put him in. It makes no sense. It breaks canon. But that's what we do. That's what we do. And that's why I kind of like it when directors don't get engaged in fan service. And they just focus on trying to make the best movie they can. And when you do, you get movies like The Dark Knight. And but it's true. But listen, Kay, as much as I'm mocking people who are doing that, let's face it, we all do it. I'm guilty of it too. Not about Maul in Obi-Wan, but I'm sure I do it about other things, right? We got to recognize that we are all part of the problem, and that I'm included in that, and you're probably included in that on some other properties. But yeah, it's when there are a lot of times when I think filmmakers and studios need to they need to block out what the chorus of is being yelled by the fans, because if the fans actually knew best, they would be filmmakers themselves, and just focus on telling the best story they can. And when they do, we get Shawshank Redemption. When we do, we get The Dark Knight. When we do, we get X-Men. When we do, there's that. So I agree. I mean, we all do it though. Let's not pretend that we're not guilty of it too. We all do it. All right. Mark Battolato writes, saw Peanut Butter Falcon, very enjoyable movie with great performances. Won't be in my top 10 for the year, but very good. Comeback for Shia LaBeouf. Well, I mean, look, Shia has been around. He's never disappeared. He's always been around doing these small, more independent films, and while doing it, turning in incredible performances. There's no doubt in Hollywood. Everybody in Hollywood knows Shia LaBeouf is one of the great actors today. Everybody knows it. It's just that he's also known for being, a few cookies short of a full pack, right? And he seems kind of crazy and kind of out of his mind. And so there's both of them. I think there are a lot of people hesitant to work with him, but everybody also acknowledges how brilliant the dude is as a performer. So whether Peanut Butter Falcon marks a comeback for him, I don't know, because it doesn't really tell us anything we didn't know. It's not like Hollywood forgot that Shia LaBeouf was brilliant. We know he's brilliant. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I think a lot of people are hesitant to work with him, unfortunately. But I'll tell you what, you put Shia LaBeouf in something, you'll get my attention, because the dude is stupid talented. And by the way, I have not seen Peanut Butter Falcon yet. That's one of the ones I haven't seen yet. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, you have to sigh at the contemporary Dark Crystal reviews. Jim Henson puppets, not for kids, does not compute, must hate. Well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that myself. Two things. I haven't seen the new Dark Crystal yet. But the second thing is I haven't seen any critics saying that myself. So maybe you have, but maybe if you have, it's only been one or two of them and you don't need to worry about the rest. But I haven't seen that myself, Ryan, so I can't comment on that myself. But I cannot wait to see the show. All right. Rafael El Guapo Castillo writes, I send you all a plethora of greetings. Robert, I imagine you have Colossus, the Forbidden Project on disc. One of my favorite early 70s sci-fi films. Very well done. Well, obviously, Robert's not here right now, Raphael, but I'm going to have to concur, like a doctor would say. I concur, doctor. I concur with you. I would be shocked if Robert doesn't have that. Shocked. I mean, as a matter of fact, that sounds like the type of movie that Forbidden Projects is the type of movie that would absolutely be on his, I mean, the era, sci-fi, 70s sci-fi film, I got a 1,000% believe that's on his desk somewhere or on his shelf somewhere. So I'm going to agree with you 1,000%. All right, Ryan Platz writes, I share a birthday with Keanu Reeves today. Well, happy birthday, Ryan. Like Keanu Reeves and Selma Hayek and a few others that were mentioned as well. Happy birthday, Ryan. I hope you have a great one and may you have a fabulous year ahead of you. So once again, happy birthday, dude. Have a great day. All right, Sebastian Davis writes, have you ever watched Wet Hot American Summer? Pretty stupid comedy, but some big names in the show business had their first role in the film. And then, by the way, they followed it up and did a return to it as well, which I think was on Netflix. And they got like Paul Rudd back, and was Elizabeth Banks in that? A part of me wants to say Elizabeth Banks that was in that. I think she was. Anyway, I watched, yes. Super enjoyable, super funny, and it is great seeing people who were at a certain point at that time and where they've come from there. And by the way, you'll recognize the voice of one of the dudes. I forget his name, but the guy who does the voice of Archer and Bob and Bob's Burgers is also one of the guys in it as well. So it's really fun. J Meister 25 writes, some critics are saying Joker is elementary in what it says about society. Can't please everyone. I'm just here for the performances, honestly. I'm not. I never go to a movie just for a performance. If all a movie's got going for it are the performances, that's not going to save a bad movie or a bad story. And yes, I'm seeing a couple of critics saying that it's basic, it's very thin, their commentary on society. Maybe. But I'm also seeing other critics saying it's incredibly intelligent in what it says about society. So yeah, I'm getting both. So don't just assume that it is thin, because a couple of critics say it is. Remember, a number of other critics are also saying it's actually quite profound and intelligent the way it depicts and looks at and analyzes society. So that's one of those things where understand that you're getting both sides of it, but now just go into it and judge it for yourself. So something for us to keep an eye on. Dark Lord of Dank, I like the name, writes, John, it's been a legendary weekend of glorious triumph. I watched YouTubers pretty much it live in Philly, then came home and had a successful first date. Always good to have a successful first date. You'll be glad to know we talked about Star Wars for half the time we were out. How was your weekend? Been watching since 2013. Peace. Well, first of all, Dark Lord, it sounds like you had like an awesome weekend, which is great. I also had a wonderful weekend. Worked a lot of it. But I got a lot done, thankfully. But I worked a lot of it, but also on top of all that, Ann and I had a chance to cuddle in and watch the original Dark Crystal again, the 1982 masterpiece. Ann had never seen it before, so there's that. We had our D&D game last night, had a great Dungeons & Dragons session last night, which was a lot of fun and all that kind of stuff. So yes, got to see some friends, got a lot of work done, did a couple of open mic shows. It was a very, very good weekend, Dark Lord. So I'm glad you had one as well. And hopefully that you guys have a good second date on top of all that. So thanks for sharing that, Dark Lord. It's always good to hear when people had a good weekend. All right. Let's see here. Ben Rayner writes, one of two. Do you think if they had like a 13 to 15-year-old Anakin in Phantom Menace, do you think it would have gone over better? No. I honestly, look, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Well, let's keep reading here. Ben then says, I always felt like Anakin in Phantom was portrayed too young. I think it would have changed the movie for the better if he was a little older, in my opinion. I disagree. Look, one of the things I've always said about the prequels, particularly Phantom Menace, is that while I don't like the movies at all, if you look down and just read like a 4-page summary of the story, there's the makings there for a great movie. I've always believed that, and I still do. I think the basic premise of that is there, and I think they had to discover Anakin young. But making him 13 to 15 doesn't change any of the weaknesses of the film. It doesn't change any of the overwhelmingly weaknesses of the film. Just making the kid a bit older doesn't really fundamentally change that. I think from a narrative point of view, yeah, you go young. And I think it was key that they discover him young and find him young. And yeah, so I'm going to disagree with you on that one, Ben. I don't think that would have fundamentally altered the movie or made it a better film. I really don't. And now you can say, well, then we wouldn't have had Jake Lloyd and Jake. But remember, it was George Lucas's direction. I mean, George Lucas, who I worship at the altar of Lucas, everybody knows this, but by George Lucas's own words, George Lucas doesn't really like working with actors. You know, in an infamous story where he talked to Ron Howard, when Ron Howard mentioned to him that he really wanted to get into directing, George Lucas said, just do animation. Oh, it's so great. You don't have to work with actors. Just do animation. It's the best. And Ron Howard's like, but I'm an actor you work with. And so Ron Howard tells a story and it's hilarious. But I think if he had worked then with a 13 or 14-year-old actor, you just would have gotten the same thing. Honestly, I think you would have just gotten the same thing. So I disagree. I think going with a young Anakin was the right move narratively. And even if they had gone a little bit older, I don't think it fundamentally changes the movie that much. But that's just my thoughts. I mean, that's just my opinion. Your opinion is no less and no more valid than mine. So that's just my thoughts on that. All right. Nathan DC Marvel writes, hey, John from the UK. I watched the Dark Crystal movie last night for the first time. Wow, that movie was beautifully well done and still holds up. I completely agree. Damn it, I love that movie. Oh, God, I love that movie. The character, the Skeksis, the mythology, the Gelflings, the whole thing about the connection between the Mystics and the Skeksis. It's great. I love that original movie. And I'm hearing good things. Robert's been watching Dark Crystal. And actually, before we started today's show, Robert was talking a little bit about, and he's loving the Dark Crystal, the new series. He's loving it. And I haven't had a chance to start watching it. I'll probably start watching it today over lunch. But I'm very excited about it. But that original movie, man, so good. I love that. I've been in love with that movie my whole life. Ever since I was like 9 years old, I've been in love with that movie. And I continue to this day. And I'm glad you had a chance to watch it, Nathan. All right, next up. Garrett Couch writes, sorry for breaking the what if rule. Just thought that Palpatine controlling Rey's and Anakin's dreams to drive them towards the dark side would have more connective tissue. Plus the clone concept has me thinking, want Jedi greatness? Gene splice it into a clone, which to me is one step away from injecting midichlorians. I'd rage quit. Am I wrong in my logic? Well, I'm not sure I'm following you here, Garrett. I just thought that Palpatine controlling Rey and Anakin's dreams to drive them towards the dark side would have more connective tissue, plus the clone concept has me thinking, want Jedi greatness, gene splice it into a clone, which to me is one step away from injecting midichlorians. I'd rage quit. Am I wrong in my logic? Damn it, Garrett. I'm not sure I'm following you here. I'm not sure I'm following you what it is you're saying and what it is you're asking. Clearly you're referencing a previous comment you sent in. Guys, I got to remind you, we get like 60 to 100 things sent in like every day. And I'm not going to remember every single one. So if you send in a question and it relies on a previous thing you sent in before, you've got to recap what it is you said before, because I'm not going to remember every single one of them. And I feel like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle here. If what you're asking, okay, is Palpatine, I'm speculating here though, Garrett, sorry, are you asking that if Palpatine is controlling Rey's and Anakin's dreams to drive them towards the dark side, that creates more connective issue between the various stages of the Star Wars films? And if you want Jedi greatness, gene splice it into a clone, which to me is one step away from injecting midichlorians. I'd rage. Again, I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. Sorry, I can't waste any more time on it. I'm sorry about that, Garrett. I'm not really quite sure. Maybe everybody else understands what it is you're saying, and they'll totally get what you're saying, but I'm not quite piecing together what it is your thought process here is and what it is you're getting at. So sorry about that, Garrett. Sometimes I just can't put it together fast enough. All right. The Football Media writes, would you ever consider doing a roundtable chat with all the crew on why they got into the industry and how it has changed from an actor/director perspective? Probably not. I mean, look, the reality is I am not an actor or director. The reality is Rob has directed a film before, but only really one. He's more of an editor now at this point. So probably not. No, I mean, that's an interesting thing to do with a bunch of established actors and directors. That would sound like a really cool thing to do with various actors and directors. And The Hollywood Reporter and Variety both do those types of videos, which is interesting. I don't know if it'd be terribly interesting to do with me and my crew, to be honest with you. So probably not. Interesting. Thanks for bringing up the idea of Football Media, but for us, probably not. Brick70 writes, is it logistically feasible for Marvel Studios to produce up to 5 films, including 2 Spider-Verse and 3 Disney Plus shows per year, or is that impossible? Look, nothing's impossible, but it's ridiculously challenging. When you understand how hands-on Kevin Feige is with every project. I remember a few years ago, I got to be the moderator for the Avengers Age of Ultron press conference. I was talking to Kevin Feige behind stage, and he had just gotten there, and he was like breathing. It's like, dude, how's your day going? It's like, it's been insane. And this was in a year where they had like 4 movies. That's it. Or maybe even just 3 movies that year. And like, that was it. And he was like, this morning I started with a 3-hour conference call about this movie. And then I had to get in and shoot over to the other building to do a quick quality check on the first Ant-Man trailer that we have coming out. And then I had to rush over to this thing for meetings on that. And then I had to do a Skype call with the guys on set over here for this movie. And that was his day. And then that was when they had like 3 movies coming out in a year. So, I mean, one guy can only do so much. So I don't know. It might be impossible. I don't know, but I don't know what's sustainable at this point. It depends on how much is Kevin Feige delegating more? Is he taking his hands more and more off it where he doesn't have as much direct control over most of these things? I don't know. It depends on that. I mean, an unlimited resources company could do as many movies as you want every year. But Disney, despite what we may think, is not a limitless resources company. And Kevin Feige has had a lot of very hands-on stuff with the MCU. How much can he actually do? That's going to become the question. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's a good question, though, Bremick, however you pronounce that. All right. Dark Lord of Dank writes, also, the chemistry between you, Chris, Rob, and Aaron makes the show truly feel like the glory days of AMC Movie Talk. Thank you for all for contributing to such a well-made show. Well, thank you for that, Dark Lord of Dank. I appreciate that. And you know what? I'm very lucky to have the group that I have with me right now. I've always been very lucky over my career to work with some really good people. Some really, really good people. Most of whom today I still consider friends. And it's always great. But when you can find really good chemistry with somebody, it's just great. And you know, look, when I was doing interviews and auditions for Chris's role here, I came across some tremendously talented people. But the big deciding factor was I just felt like I had better chemistry with Chris, and that plays out on screen, and that's an important thing. And it really means a lot to me that you recognize that and that you would call it out. So thank you for that, man. I really, really appreciate that very, very much. All right. Jehan Bagwargar writes, hi, John. Big fan. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say I'm going to be directing my first ever short film soon for my university bachelor's degree, and I'm super stoked for it. Dude, that is awesome. You know what? Everybody talks about, I want to make a movie. I want to write a book. I want to do this, or I want to do that. But nobody ever, very, very few people ever actually do anything to accomplish them. They just sit around and wait for something to be handed to them. And if it's not, then they don't do anything. And I always tell people, do something every day no matter how big or how small, that moves you ever so closer to your goals. Whether it's writing an email or making a phone call or putting something together or writing something a little bit, just do something today that will contribute towards you getting closer to your goals. Very few people do that. Nobody wants to work. But you're doing it, man, and that's awesome, and I salute you, sir. Best of luck on your shoot, my friend. All right, Marie Seifring writes, Bill Murray is well known for comedy, but what do you think of his more dramatic roles like in The Razor's Edge and Lost in Translation? Thanks. I think he's a guy, like one of the best examples, well, the best example. It's very rare to get for somebody to be able to go from really being seen as a pure comedy person to being really respected dramatically. The best example of that is Tom Hanks. Like a lot of people today will forget that Tom Hanks was primarily only known as a comedian. He was a comedian and he did comedy. He's the bosom buddies guy. And then he started to do drama and he's the best example of that. Another great example of that is Jim Carrey. It was just all comedy, but then he started to do some dramatic stuff and he was awesome. Adam Sandler is another good example of that. I think Adam Sandler is actually a better dramatic performer than he even is as a comedic performer. I wish he would stop doing all of his crappy comedies and just do more drama because he's awesome at it. Bill Murray has not had the opportunity to show it off as much. And even with Lost in Translation, there's certainly comedic element to his performance in Lost in Translation. But I would say Bill Murray falls into that category, Marie, of a guy who is primarily known as comedy, who has shown that he's able to transition into dramatic as well. There's not many of them. And he's not the best example of it. But I believe, I think you're right. I think he falls into that example category as well, Marie. Good observation. All right. The Football Media writes, why has no network ever made a solitary movie show like yours for TV? There's obviously demand, John. I'd sign you in a second if I could. Well, I mean, I think there have been. Like Reels Network has tried doing one or two. And then some other shows have sort of been there, but they quickly evolve into just being celebrity gossip shows. Like I remember this was a couple years ago, me and Ann were on vacation, or not on vacation, but we were in a hotel somewhere. And we turned on TV and it's like, I can't remember if it was Extra or if it was like one of those entertainment Hollywood shows, right? But all it was nonstop is, and the next big topic is the dress that so-and-so wore at this gala. And then the next one is, which of these handsome Hollywood guys is this actress dating now? It was all celebrity gossip bullshit. And listen, we've had, back in the AMC days, we were approached and we had a television opportunity. But at the time I was like, no way. Because they were going to take all the control away. We wouldn't have been making our show. We would have had to have answered to too many people. I'm like, no way. Then we've had other opportunities that even one or two that I liked that didn't work out as well. And but yeah, I think something like this, not necessarily the John Campea Show, but I think something like this show could work on television. And I think would get an audience. It wouldn't be the number one show in the world, but I think something like this would. But anyway, that's you and me both, Football Media. Ardent Defender writes, where are we? Been watching you since the Closet Set show first started at AMC. A huge thanks to you, Rob, Chris, and Aaron Weekly for making this show really special. Well, thank you so much, Ardent. It's really, first of all, it's always great when I'm hearing from people who've been watching ever since that days. It's funny because you can break my career down into several eras. There was the movie blog era, which is where, I had the site going. That's where I really started, had the first podcast, all that kind of stuff. Then when you move beyond that, there was a short for your consideration era. And then I moved into AMC. There was the AMC era. And then after that came the era after that. And now I'm in the John Campea Show era. And it's always fun when I get to hear from people who have been watching for a long time and have been one of the older eras. So it's always great when I hear people from the AMC days. A lot of people write to me saying, dude, I've been reading you since the movie blog days and then your podcast. It's always a kick. So thank you, Arden, for being along for the ride. And thank you just for sending that in to say something nice. I appreciate it, dude. All right. Tab Zarm writes, John versus Rob, who would win in a real fight? That's unfair. There are many, many, many more important things that Rob is clearly better than me at. But I've spent a good part of my life also training in certain things, so that's not fair. So that's not a fair one. But there are a lot of things, more important things, that Rob would clearly best me in. Mr. Dobby33 writes, "Hey John, are you surprised with Joker's Rotten Tomato score?" A little, yeah. Just because with the first early buzz we heard, I expected it to be mid to high 90s. Now, granted, again, let's be very, very clear here. 89% is not a good, 89% is a great score for a movie. It's not a good score, it's a great score. Am I surprised? Yes, because I thought it would be a little bit higher considering the early buzz. I'm a little bit surprised to see that like some big outlets are giving it negative reviews, whatever. But it's still an 89, which is still really effing good. So surprised? Yes, I was expecting better, but don't be confused though. It's still a great score. It's still a great score. Red, and that score could go up. Remember, only like 35 reviews have been counted so far. So that 89, I mean, it could go down, but it could go up. So let's keep our eyes open for it when the full review embargo lifts, and when everybody's had a chance to see it. Red Hunter writes, "Saw Angel Has Fallen and found it surprisingly good. Been hearing that a lot. I think I'm going to have to go out and see it. I wasn't going to watch it because I really liked Olympus Has Fallen, but then I really didn't like London Has Fallen. So, and I didn't think the trailers for Angel Has Fallen looked very good, so I wasn't going to go see it. But I've had a number of you guys now write in and say that you saw it and you actually kind of liked it a lot. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to drag myself out to go see it. I think you guys have convinced me I'm going to go see it. All right, Nicholas Zolezzi writes, "Hi, JC. How do you stay healthy, jogging, gym?" Well, I don't go to the gym as often as I try to go to the gym about 4 days a week. Really, it ends up being about 1 or 2 days a week. But I do the step thing. I make sure I get in my 5 miles a day. I have a treadmill desk, and I'm still not in as good shape as I should be in. I mean, let's be honest. Ever since I had my heart attacks, like when I was training, like doing my MMA training and everything, like 5 days a week and all that kind of crap, and then I had my heart attacks, and my lifestyle totally changed after my heart attacks because I got scared. And I got scared of pushing myself, even though my cardiologist told me, you're good, like you're better than you were before, you're good. I've still never really pushed it. And then I think part of it's laziness set in. I think I went through such a long period of time being scared to exercise a lot. Because I like blew up to 245 pounds at one point. And then I realized, I got to make some changes. So I'm still nowhere near being in the condition I should be in, because when fear kept me from exercising as much as I should, then laziness started to set in. And then on top of that, just how much I work. But the best thing I ever did was I got a treadmill desk. So every day I can go into my room, get on my treadmill desk where I've got my laptop, a big 27-inch secondary monitor attached to it, my phone, speakers, everything. And I can get on my treadmill and I can put in a couple of miles while working, which is great. So that's the best thing I can ever do, but I got to do more. I got to do more. I absolutely have to do more. But a treadmill desk, I highly recommend. If you're a person who finds it hard just to even get in some physical activity because of how busy you are, I highly recommend a treadmill desk. It was actually first recommended to me by a colleague of mine, Peter Soretta from Slash Film. And Peter was actually the one who first recommended to me a treadmill desk. And I'm like, a treadmill desk? And he told me about it. He said he was getting in like 6 miles a day on it. And I'm like, well, I got to try that. And I've been hooked on it ever since. Mr. L writes, "Imagine they start making movies with different endings, and which ending you see is decided randomly via a loot crate in your cinema screening." Yeah, I hate that. I hate that. I mean, that's my nightmare, Mr. L, right there. And you know they're going to do stuff like that. And there have been movies that have done that. It's like, there's an alternate ending. Well, then that undoes the entire movie. Your movie should have an ending, and that's it. Like, if your alternate ending is just like an extra scene that doesn't change what happened in the movie, that's fine. But it's like, in one movie version, this person did it. But in another version of the movie, that another person committed the murder. Then to me, that undoes everything about the movie. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. And I'm really worried about them heading towards something like that, Mr. L. That keeps me up at night in a cold sweat. Jari Manian writes, "Dark prediction. Year 2015 MCU Infinity Saga box." Year 2015, MCU Infinity Saga box. 23 original movies, 10 director's cuts, 12 extended movies, and 1 R-rated Endgame with Deadpool. Year 2015, MCU Infinity Saga box. 23 original movies, 10 director's cuts, 12 extended movies, and 1 R-rated Endgame with Deadpool. And is that a prediction for the past? I'm sorry, dude, I'm not quite sure where it is you're going with that. I apologize. Epic Berserker writes, "Hey JC, here's my update about the labor Peter. Here's my update about the labor. Peter came out natural. He was a big." Oh, are you? I think you're talking about your dad. Peter came out. Okay, I thought this is a Spider-Man thing. What did Peter? Was Peter going to work? Labor? What? Okay, here's my update about the labor. Peter came out natural. He was a big boy, 9 pounds, 4 ounces, and his chest is built like he looks like a lineman for the Chargers. First, congrats, man. That's awesome. Well done. I was like, Peter? I just assumed we were talking about Spider. Like, what? Wait, what? What are you talking about? That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you and your family. That is exciting stuff, and I'm just glad I picked up on what we were talking about. Congratulations on that, Epic. That is awesome. Congrats, dude. All right, Epic then follows up with Robert Downey Jr. versus Joaquin Phoenix Oscar fight of 2019. I don't think so. Quite frankly, I don't think Robert Downey Jr. deserves an Academy Award nomination, to be honest with you. So I don't think that's much of a fight. I know there are some people who would argue because they love Endgame, but I'm don't get me wrong, I liked Robert Downey Jr. in Endgame. I liked him very much. Do I think what Robert Downey Jr. did in Endgame was Oscar-worthy? No. I thought it was very good. Big thumbs up from me. I don't think it was Oscar-worthy, so I don't know if I see that as the big Oscar fight, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right, MPE94 writes, "What's your view of extended editions / director's cuts that come out 6 months after the first theatrical runs for streaming or in theaters 10 years later?" Again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, MPE. I kind of see the theatrical release of films and then its home video release later as two completely different things. And maybe, as I said earlier in the show, maybe I'm creating a false distinction, but in my head, there's very much a big distinction. And I'm totally cool. Now, look, what I wasn't cool with even back in the day is we released the Blu-rays of this movie, yay. And then 2 months later, now here's the Blu-rays with the extended edition. It's like, you sons of bitches. Why didn't you just put that in the original thing? Because you're trying to make us buy it twice. And then 3 months after that, now the super ultra extended editions on Blu-ray. It's like, you mother effers. Now you're making us buy it 3 times. But that's a separate issue. As far as what do they do theatrically, and then what do they do with home video, I see those as two completely different things. So if you want to add in extra stuff for the home video release and add extra options, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But for your theatrical run, give us the movie. Don't give us one version of the movie and then 4 weeks later, give us another version of the movie. I hate that. I don't want that. As far as what you do with your theatrical release and home video release, I see those as two different things. Let's see. Where are we at here? Nick writes, "What pisses me off about movie ads in theaters, got so used to planning ahead to show up 20 minutes late to watch the movie one day, they decided to start it at the actual show time and I missed a start." You know what, Nick? You're not the first guy to write into me and tell me about that. I've had a couple of people have written into me before and say, "Oh, wow, I went to the movies like last night and they just showed 2 trailers and started the movie. It was great." That's great. It is. That's great. But yeah, if you're somebody like us, Nick, and you want to roll the dice and show up 20 minutes late to try to avoid all the trailers, what happens if that particular day for that particular movie, they decide to only show 4 trailers, like 10 minutes of trailers? Now you've missed the first 10 minutes of the movie. And a part of me I can't help but wonder if they do that on purpose to try to condition us to say, hey, you better come and sit down and watch the trailers. You better come and sit down and watch trailers, because who knows, maybe we'll only show 10 minutes of trailers today. We never know. I mean, that, and you're right, that pisses me off. It's one thing if it's clockwork, no problem, every single time, 27 minutes of trailers. That's bad enough on its own, but at least I know with my pre-assigned seat, I can show up 25 minutes late. But every once in a while, they throw in, oh, we only showed 4 trailers today, and you missed 10 minutes of the movie or 15 minutes of the movie. You're right, dude. That's an extra little thing to get pissed off at. I'm totally with you on that. All right. Sam O'Neill writes, just a quick thank you to you and all the team for doing what you do. Thanks so much, man. Been down in the dumps a lot lately, and your show takes me off into my own world with no worries. So the J-U to everyone. Well, first of all, Sam, I love it when I hear stuff like that because one of the things I love most about movies, you guys hear me say it all the time, is that movies are a great way, and the movie fan community, watching movies and talking about movies, are great ways that they just give our brains a little bit of a break from dealing with all the heaviness that we got going on in life. And when we give our brains a little bit of a break to just enjoy ourselves, refresh ourselves a little bit, have a little bit of fun, not only does it give us a break, but I find it can give us a little bit of a different perspective when we come back into the real world. Our problems are still there. The things that we're wrestling with are still there, and we all are. But now our brains have had a little bit of a break. They're a little bit more refreshed, and maybe we're able to come at our problems with a little bit of a different perspective. And that's always a good thing. And that's one of the things I love about the movies and movie fan community, Sam, and I'm glad the movie fan community can be that for you too, even if our show is a little part of that. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for mentioning that and exposing that, dude. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. Edward Ide writes, greetings from Buffalo. I used to go into Buffalo all the time. I have been conditioned to go and get food / get water when Mr. Campea says that they're taking a break, but not until then. I'm now a sheep. Great job, Mr. Campea. Yeah, that's right. I have conditioning, but that's a positive conditioning. To let you guys know, if you're watching the John Campea Show and you want to take a break, you know there's a little break coming. So I put that in there so we can all take a break. You, me, but now you do. You know the conditioning of it. So that's a good way of being. Don't think of it as a bad sheep. Think of it as a good sheep, like the type of sheep that you count to go to sleep. It's a helpful sheep thing. It's a little bit of healthy conditioning out, Edward. But thank you for pointing that out, my friend. All right. Sam O'Neill writes, also, I haven't seen any Lord of the Rings. Please shame me so I can watch them. Haha. Also, would you recommend making a trip from Australia to America, mostly for Galaxy's Edge, maybe Comic-Con next year? Well, listen, as somebody who's never been to Australia myself, and as somebody who's never done a lot of traveling, I mean, all the traveling I've done has been within North America, US, Canada, Mexico. That's all the traveling I've ever done. I got to do more. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. But in principle, traveling around sounds like a great thing. And if you can come and experience things like Comic-Con and Disneyland and the Santa Monica Pier, walk down the Hollywood Boulevard, whatever. I think that sounds great. I would absolutely recommend that. 1000%. If you get the opportunity to do that, you should absolutely do it. If I wasn't so scared of flying, I fly all the time, but man, I hate flying. And the idea of taking a 12-hour flight really is bad for me. But if I had such a fear of heights and flying, man, I would have visited Australia a long time ago. So if you get the chance to do that, man, absolutely you should do it. All right. Phoenix Colden sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Phoenix. And then he follows up and writes, with episode 9 coming out soon, I decided to watch the Star Wars films for the first time, but I'm not sure of the order. Which do you recommend? I get asked this all the time. I would say order of release. So Star Wars Episode 4, the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Quite frankly, honestly, I would recommend skipping the prequels. But if you don't want to do that, I would say watch the original Star Wars films first, then watch the prequels, and basically watch them in order of release. That's my recommendation. I would advise skipping the prequels, but if you don't want to do that, then keep them in there in order of release. So episodes 4, 5, and 6, then 1, 2, and 3, then The Force Awakens, then Rogue One, then The Last Jedi, and then Solo. So I would recommend watching in that order, but that's how I go. But good on you, man. I'm kind of jealous. You get to watch the Star Wars movies for the first time ever, something I will never get to do again. Okay. Ricky Overpowered writes, I like that name. One Piece is the 3rd best-selling comic book worldwide. I've never even heard of it. To be honest with you, I've never even heard of it. That's interesting. Ramus, learn something new every day from you guys. Thanks for sharing that, Ricky. Rasmus Janssen writes, hey guys, great show. Thank you so much. What actor do you want to see make their superhero movie debut, hero or villain? I'm so glad about Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. It's going to be interesting to see Ewan McGregor in there. Look, the one I've always said is the greatest actor of all time, Daniel Day-Lewis. He is the GOAT. He is the best there is. He's the Bret Hart of acting. The best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. He's the guy I would really like to see most. Now, unfortunately, he says he's retired. Whether that sticks or not, I hope it really doesn't stick, because he is the greatest actor the world's ever seen, in my opinion. I would, particularly when it comes to the movies, I would love to see him back, and damn it, I don't think he ever would do a comic book movie. But then again, we probably never thought Joaquin Phoenix would do a comic book movie, especially after he turned down Doctor Strange. I never thought we'd see Joaquin Phoenix, and here he is playing the Joker. Maybe going to get some Oscar buzz for it. So the one for me that I would totally go to is the greatest actor of all time, Daniel Day-Lewis. Ryan Kelly writes, Rob, who's not here right now, what did you think of the DC... the director's cut of Midsommar? Thought it was more complex version that fleshes out the story and relationships. Well, he's not here to answer, but I can tell you that he and I talked about it before the show started today. He wasn't all that impressed. I can tell you that. At least in what he communicated to me, he wasn't all that impressed with it. So, so take that for what it is, for what it's worth. Marie Seifring writes, I tried Zevia. They should sponsor you. They totally should sponsor me. Zevia, where are you, dudes? I'm constantly talking about your damn soda. Why? At least send me free Zevia. Give me something here. But no, I am not sponsored by Zevia at all. But I've gotten so many people who said they now buy Zevia because of me and my recommendation. Zevia, get on it. Sponsor the John Campea Show, because I drink your damn product anyway. But then again, they're probably thinking, why should we give you anything? You're promoting us for free. Why should we give you money when we just get the promotion for free? It's true. I can't blame you for that logic. Ricky Overpowered writes, Superman, 600 million. Batman, 477 million. One Piece, 454 million. I assume you're talking about comic books. Oh, so let me go back here. One Piece is the third best-selling comic book worldwide. Again, I've never even heard of it. So I'm going to have to go and look that up, Ricky, to see what that's all about. Is the third writes, sounds like the woman you didn't hire held a bit of a grudge. LOL. Great show as always. No, as a matter of fact, she didn't. We had a really good laugh about it. As a matter of fact, she even wrote to me afterwards, just said, hey, I'm acting now, but if you ever want another host, let me know. It was actually really, really good. She was great. It was very fun. It was held in a very fun, funny way. So it was great, as a matter of fact. Darian Boyd writes, prediction, Toy Story 4 gets Oscar nomination for production design. The macro sets are insane. Dust, cobwebs, hair, and antique scratches. You know what? I would be so down if they gave Toy Story 4 an Oscar nomination for design. I would be down with it completely. But I don't think the production designers are going to nominate an animated film for that. I don't think they're going to do it. I still think there's some chasms here they've got to bridge for that to happen. So I don't think it will. I'd be down for it if it did, but I really don't think it will. All right, final question today, guys. Then we're all wrapped up. Comes to us from Quinn Allfather69, who writes, I've watched most of the Star Wars movies and enjoy them, but I'm not a fanatic. However, the MCU consumes me. How do you, as a Star Wars guy, compare the franchises, or is it apples and oranges? Well, I mean, personally, I think Star Wars is far superior as far as the overall mythology, story, and all that kind of stuff. And a long, long time ago, a galaxy far, far away. But that's me. Every movie is different. Like, there are going to be people who say, Star Wars and MCU, Harry Potter, kid, is where it's at. There are going to be people who say that. There are going to be people who say, DCU, MCU, Star Wars, Pshaw, Star Trek, kids. There are going to be people who say that. It's all subjective, and they're all different, and they all appeal to us in different ways. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer whatsoever. It all is about what's it to me, right? How does it affect me as an individual? For one person, it's going to be DC movies. For another person, it's going to be James Bond movies. For another person, it's going to be Star Wars movies. For another person, it's going to be Marvel movies. For another person, it's going to be Harry Potter movies. For another person, for everybody, it's going to be a different thing. And there's no right and there's no wrong answer. So it is apples and oranges. They're different things, but it's all part of the subjective nature. So it's like asking, what's better, Godfather or Goodfellas? Well, I think Godfather, but it's going to depend on the individual. It's a subjective opinion. So that's how I see that, man. And so you should never apologize for the things you love or the things you don't, because it's all subjective when it comes to movies at any rate. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Again, special shout out and thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett and Chris Carr, who were here a little bit earlier. Don't forget, Aaron and Robert will be back again tomorrow for the John Campea Show. It's going to be good to have Aaron back. She was off on a little bit of a Hawaiian holiday with her husband, Tom. It's going to be good to have her back. Good to have Rob back. And it'll be good to have you guys back. Hey, listen, by the way, I still have to do a companion video. Just my weekend got really busy. And I did a lot of work this weekend too, but I still have to do a companion video for Friday's show. We still got a bunch of questions, so that companion video is coming today. The companion video from Friday's show is coming today. Keep your eyes and ears open for that, my friends. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now for this episode of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you come back tomorrow. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.